known for being the first OG villains of the Amazing Race and their ability to not make friends but do whatever it takes to win. They were so controversial in season one that they were invited back for All Stars, where unfortunately their bad luck with airfare and the same for buses did them in. Please welcome to the Random Reality Star Podcast, Team Guido. Thanks so much for coming on, guys.
Hey, it's great to
Hi.
be here. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm great. So my first question I always like to ask, talk about your casting process because you guys really didn't know what Amazing Race was because you were the first season. So maybe just talk about how you figured out what the show was, why did you pick each other as partners, and why did you apply?
So the way it started out is I found Big Brother, and watching the first season of Big Brother. Before that, let me back up. I did one application to Survivor, didn't get it. Then started watching Big Brother and saw the advertisement for the Amazing Race. It said, join the CBS Summer Global Adventure Series for a lifetime of adventure and travel around the world. And so you want to tell about the actual interview process?
Yeah, so Bill asked me if I would do it with him. I had been around the world many times with my work. And I thought, well, this is a lot better than him going on Survivor, because if he got picked for Survivor, his life would totally change and my life would be totally the same, just staying home, taking care of the dog or whatever.
Yeah.
So we did this, and our interview tape was a 17-page written application with a 3-minute maximum videotape interview or application also. And we created a little video where Guido was interviewing us, and we would kind of tell a whole bunch of lies to him about how much we loved to camp and how well we were versed in foreign languages and everything else. And then he would turn to the camera and just divulge our lying to the producers. And when we set this in, number one, we were early, so the casting crew was telling us, hey, we got an interview from a dog or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they were really big dog lovers. And it was so high tech then that they would code all the tapes and put them on little yellow Post-its and put the yellow Post-its on a white chalkboard. And as they got more and more tapes that they liked better, your little Post-it would drop down and eventually fall off the chalkboard, and you don't get an interview. And this one lady told us that we went up in the upper left-hand corner and we stayed there for like the whole interview process. So we got our first interview in Santa Monica about 4 weeks later.
That's really cool. So going into the race, what did you expect it to be like maybe before running it? And then how did that change like throughout the race? Because I've talked to a couple teams from your season and they're like, we packed like we were going camping and we didn't know what to expect. So maybe what was your whole mindset before the race and then running it? Like,
Well, the way we saw it from the information we're getting from, originally it was called World Race Productions. They kind of didn't give us any information at all, really. And then they started to dribble out a little bit of stuff. When we would ask them questions, they would just give us the bare minimum of information. And what my question was, you know, how do you want to, I'm thinking of other shows like MTV kind of stuff where they would give them uniforms or, because some of the stuff that was going on reality TV was all on MTV.
yeah.
And so I was kind of using that as a template for what we could expect, and not at all. CBS was pretty cheap when it came to providing anything other than the bare minimum. And of course, it was a very expensive production, so I don't surprise them. I'm not surprised that they did it that way. So the question was that kind of led to everything else was, what do we wear? What do we bring? And they said, we're not going to tell you what to bring. You bring whatever you want. And to me, that felt like a lead, like, okay, they want us to bring the kitchen sink and we're not going to do that because we have to travel on planes, trains, automobiles, and we want to be light and ready to move. So let's just bring the bare minimum. We went looking at REI,
yeah,
who were we lived in Orange County at the time, California. And we found a backpack that wasn't big, but it wasn't huge, too small. And
pants, the zippers, you know,
Here-
the bottom of the pants came off, made shorts, and
Yeah, and here's the thing, what I was getting at with the backpack is we wanted to be sure that it was carry-on luggage. That was our first hint of like, let's make this work because we want to be fast at whatever we do, because we'd be getting on off planes, because we're going to go around the world in like a month or 2 months. They weren't real clear on how long it was going to be. So that was the beginning and end of the early successes for us, because every other team had these enormous backpacks with tents and sleeping bags and rollerblades.
frying pans.
So we knew from the very beginning we either made a very big mistake or we did the right thing. And as soon as we got to the airport, we realized we did the right thing.
Yeah. And we also took the CBS suggestion when we found out we weren't getting team uniforms, but they suggested that we kind of dress similarly because people would have a difficulty trying to figure out who's with who when you have 22 initial contestants in the first episode. So we decided, well, we're just going to dress identically so that we look like we're together. And then Bill naturally got the idea to emboss or embroider the name Team Guido on everything in honor of our dog at the time, who got us on the show originally anyway. And that's how we started dressing identically. And we also had Team Guido on everything that we wore.
Which is kind of what evolved through the rest of the season. Now everybody dresses alike and everybody has
a name, their team this
and
and team that.
That all started with Team Guido, because we showed up to the first day of the meeting of all the other cast members. We didn't talk to them, but in our first photo session, everybody's like looking at our shirts and our hats because they had our name on it. And they kept saying, who's Team Guido? And us.
Yeah. Pat and Brenda actually said to us, well, if you're Team Guido, who are we? And I looked at it and said, you're nobody, because we're going to win.
Oh my God. Yeah, I actually interviewed.
We started the race in the hotel interview. We knew everybody where they were, including Bertram and Elise and all the interview girls. We knew where everybody was at all times.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd always come to us and say, have you seen Bertram today?
We decided to totally dominate the interview process.
That was
a la Richard Hatch.
That was the first pit stop, was the interview process.
Yeah, so obviously this was 20 years ago, but I usually always ask this question. What was your first impression maybe of the other teams, if you even remember? Like, do you have any first impressions?
Not only do we have first impressions, we named all of them, including when we went to CBS for our final interview. That was the first question they asked us. We hear that you've named all the other teams.
Funny nicknames.
Well, because there's so many that before we were all cast, there were 22 teams, not 11. So we had to kind of keep track of them when we're talking about them and how we felt they might be as competition. And I mean, we just were so hyper analytical. I mean, it gives me a headache to think about it now.
Yeah.
We're really making sure that we didn't make any missteps in that first interview process.
Yeah, do you have any of
so we go into this interview with Les Moonves, who's the president of CBS, and Bertram von Munster and everybody else. And the first thing they do is they ask us for our little cheat sheet where we had everybody's name written down, kind of going through it and who was this one and who was that one. And then eventually they said, well, who do you think we're going to pick? And at the time, we thought they were going to be picking 10 teams, not 11. And I think we got 7 or 8 of them right. And
not only that, we picked the order.
Oh, yeah, we picked the order of the final 3 teams that were going to win.
Got that wrong.
With naturally us, we were going to win. But then, according to us, the Stud Muffins, who were Robin Brennan, and the athletic black couple, who were Marguerite and Frank, it was going to be 1, 2, and 3 in that order. So we had everything except we had the order a little messed up.
We could pretty much tell who our competition was because when we would go to the dining room every day to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, basically, because all the rest of the time we were locked in our rooms, except for a little break, I think in the afternoon, they would let us have wine because everyone was complaining we wanted booze. At least we did anyway. And so they let us out to, for a few minutes just to get out of our room and sit in the lobby in a certain place. And I don't know where I was going with that, but
one day everybody was so claustrophobic and so upset about being locked in the DoubleTree Hotel in Santa Monica that they gave us about 2 hours off.
That's
and we
right.
could either go wandering around a mall that was attached to the hotel, or we could go in Santa Monica and do something. And we got up like about 7 o'clock in the morning in the car. I don't think we were supposed to use the car. We were probably just supposed to walk around, but we got in the car and we went to a wine store or a Safeway or whatever, and basically bought a case of wine. and then we would just kind of like leave it in the car the whole time. And whenever we needed a new drink or whatever, we'd sneak down to the garage and get ourselves 2 fresh bottles of wine, because he drinks white and I drink red.
So we got
so we got our nickname was the Wine Guys, because nobody knew who we were either.
Yeah, so do you guys remember, like, what, if you don't mind sharing, like, any of the other nicknames that you came up with for the other teams?
Yeah, there was Goofus and Girlfriend. That was Matt and Anna. There was...
There were 2 mother-daughter teams.
Yeah.
So one of them was mother-daughter Chic and mother-daughter Dowdy. And that was Nancy and Emily, because Nancy always showed up with, like, these little sack dresses that she looked like she made herself.
Well, very conservative.
Yeah.
We
had Frank and Margarita were the athletic black couple. Lenny and Karen were the intelligent black couple. We had a number of different names for Kevin and Drew.
We hadn't met them or anything. It was all just by appearances and the way they carried themselves. Because when we were in the dining room, we would naturally, there would be someone minding us, one of our minders, and we called them the casting crew girls. And Sammy Mendenhall was one, and
Beth Feldman,
CBS employees, basically, like part-time employees. And we got to get information out of a lot of them just about basics, nothing important about the race, but we kind of were trying to make sure we didn't make any mistakes. Yeah. So we'd bend their ears, and we weren't complaining, but we just befriended them to make sure we got as much information as we could.
Yeah, so what are you thinking of, like, when you're on the first leg? And, well, first off, I talked to Frank, and he's awesome, but how satisfying was it beating him to the airport, and you just see his face of, like, disgust of, come on, like, these 2 people that are just, like, identical twins just beat me.
It was the biggest... Go ahead and finish your... I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like these 2 guys that are dressed up as, like, identical twins. Like, I forget what he said, but you did it, like, 3 times throughout the race, and it was almost like a little montage where it's like, I'm number 1, and then you're like, hi, we're here.
Well, even prior to that, when we raced from Central Park to JFK, we got to the airport so fast that, and our clue was just to go to, like, the ticket counter of one of the 3 airlines that we could fly on.
Yeah.
Well, we get there to South African Airways, and they're not even open yet.
And the people from The Amazing Race hadn't gotten there with the clue box or anything.
So we're just literally standing in line, and then Frank and Margarita show up behind us, and then Rob and Brennan show up behind them or whatever. And we're like, just like making sure that nobody's going to jump ahead of us or whatever. So we're standing behind the rope saying, okay, well, we're number 1, and you're number 2, and you're number 3. And we're like all waiting for the ticket counter to open up and just to give us our tickets and stuff.
Well, and Frank and Margarita are from New York. So they're really like, how did you guys do that? We took the fastest way here, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But, we just got dumb luck getting a cab quickly, because there were faster ways to do it, but almost every other team made a phone call. We just went straight to the airport.
The funny part about it is actually getting to JFK, we were not number 1, we were number 2. Pat and Brenda got there before us, but Pat had this walking stick thing, like, she's going to be like this gnomish mountain climber in Switzerland or whatever. And the thing had this big...
Like a weapon.
The big thing had this big spike on it, on the bottom of it, so I should stick it in the dirt. So they wasted time arguing about how the airline was going to take it away from them and everything. And we snuck in through behind them. And while they're kind of like arguing to save their walking stick with a spike on it. So we became number 1. I think they were number 4 or 5.
Yeah, well, they spent a lot of time trying to, they had to ditch the stick
They had to ditch the spike, just like Frank had to ditch his roller blades. And I think Karen had to throw away her frying pan.
Yeah, well, I interviewed Pat and Brenda, and they're like, we packed a bunch of camping gear and all this other stuff, and we emptied it out like in the middle of nowhere in Africa. And so they didn't even tell me about that. But so what was it like? I mean, you go to Victoria Falls, and you obviously said that you travel a lot, but Victoria Falls is one of the 7 wonders of the world. So what is it like going over that bridge, which terrified the crap out of me? And then maybe bungee jumping. How afraid or excited were you doing that?
Well, the first thing is you couldn't see anything. You knew you were going across a bridge, but the Zambezi River was in flood stage that year. So literally what you saw in that season was us walking through the waterfall. It was actually coming over that bridge. It felt like rain, but we found out later that was the waterfall hitting us. And the water was running on the bridge. You could barely see anything, much less know that you're hundreds of feet above the water. So we're just so worried about everything getting wet in our backpacks. I didn't think about the bridge. Did you?
Yeah, no, I didn't really think about the bridge very much.
You couldn't see our feet. The water was so deep on the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the jumping part was much later in the day, and we were all dried out by then. But I'm deathly afraid of heights, but I never told Joe that. I mean, we've been together 14 years and he didn't know it. I get on an elevator and I get, butterflies in my stomach. So I just knew that I had to do it. Joe went first. Of everyone in the race, we were the first ones to jump. They even asked us, do we want to wait for the helicopter? And we said, hell no, we want to jump and stay ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
We would have been first had it not been that we just didn't do the fast forward, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
That's a whole other story. But anyway, yeah, it was scary. And
it was like a standing on a diving board at the side of a 30-story building. And you get in this harness, and the guy, I had this little safari hat on, and I had glasses on, and the guy said, well, you need to take your glasses off. We'll send them down to you. And I didn't understand how they were going to do that. So I gave him my glasses. I left the safari hat on. You get over there, and then they say, well, the helicopter with the camera is not even ready. Like, do you want to wait for it? And it's like, no. It's like, let's just do it. I'm not going to wait for the, you're not going to be on film. It's like, I don't care. So we jump off, and literally, I mean, this sounds stupid, but literally, the safari hat filled up with air. So it lifts up, and this little chin strap that was underneath my chin slides up, and it catches on my nose. Otherwise, I would have lost the hat. So I'm going down there, and this whole thing is just literally holding on by my nose, and you have to hold on to this big bungee cord sort of thing. And then then they find out after Billy does it, they send down my eyeglasses in a burlap bag connected to the bungee cord. They just throw it over the side.
And let me tell you a little bit about that jump. Later in India, we had drinks with the security guy in a hotel we were in, and he said, you guys were going the equivalent of like jumping out of an airplane your body's going more than like 75 to 95 miles an hour. And literally I thought, well, I'm going to die. So I opened my eyes while I'm jumping, and it was just like a blur of green because I must have been facing the cliff as I was going down. And we were literally only about 10, 12 feet away from the cliff until we got to the bottom and swung out over the ravine. But it was absolutely terrifying until you feel the gravity on the rope start to tighten up. It was elation. It was
we were all black and blue. Billy screamed so much he couldn't talk, so he couldn't do interviews for 2 days or whatever. And that night in the Songwe village, he looks at me and says, if the rest of the race is going to be like this, I don't think I can do it. It's like,
we're too old for this.
What the hell? It's like, this is for $1 million. You'll do it.
Yeah, well, and Dave and Margareta were trucking along, Dave and Margareta were older than you guys, and they were trucking along. So I was safe. They can do it. You guys,
they kept up with us. They were amazing.
They
had bad luck in one leg, and that was it for them. Yeah. But they really could have been contenders to make it all the way.
They were really troopers.
Yeah. So after that, you guys had to cook an ostrich egg, which was disgusting, and it was unaired. Did you guys actually cook your entire egg? Because a bunch of people said that they ate it raw. And it was like
cooked it and
thing.
There's no way I could eat it, and I was worried about getting sick. And it wasn't disgusting. It really, literally did taste like an egg, but it's like 2 dozen eggs.
Yeah.
So it's a lot to eat.
Yeah, it's equivalent of like 24 eggs.
Yeah.
We cooked it, and here I am trying to cook it so that the thing doesn't stick to the side of the skillet or the pan or whatever, like you're really making an omelet or something. And then 6 or 8 people later, Drew and Kevin are so intent on not being last that they just kind of pour it into the pot, cook it for like 30 seconds and decide, well, the hell with it, we have to eat it, so we'll just eat it raw. And so they each
really
swallow
sick.
it. And then here they are throwing up behind our cabin at Songway Village. We heard them while we're taking showers.
Oh.
And here they are on the other side of the wall, just barfing behind us.
Yeah.
Awful.
So the next leg, you got to go on an African safari before heading to Paris. So how cool was that? I mean, you really got to experience like all of Africa.
It was amazing. Yeah. I mean, it was we thought the first leg was incredible, and just the race just kept getting better and better. So that really was an amazing day. I mean, it was just like, oh my gosh, we're in Africa. We just saw, it was on my bucket list to go to Victoria Falls, and I couldn't believe that I'd been there the day before. And then here we are on our safari. I mean,
yeah,
we saw here's how amazing it was. We saw an albino giraffe. I mean, it wasn't just like the normal things that you think of, like what are those deer? What are those impalas? And
Impala.
I mean, we saw all that, but we saw that when I saw that giraffe, I just went, oh my God, where do you ever see an albino giraffe? It's amazing.
On CBS.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
No, it was really truly amazing.
Or National Geographic maybe, but other than that, not really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But here we were like 2 days into the race, and we're doing these incredible things.
So going into the next leg, you guys basically receive a gift on a silver platter. Other than going like maybe to where you live in the States, you get to go to where you've lived for 2 years. So maybe talk to me about why you formed that alliance with Robin Brennan and Frank and Margarita. And then also talk about how on earth were you able to afford champagne and all that stuff? Because I was watching and I was laughing my ass off when you see people like struggling in the rain in the following leg, and they're like really cold and miserable, and it's just like you guys like wandering the streets. You're like, oh, I'm gonna cry. We get to see our old house, and you're like, so maybe talk about that, because how the hell are you affording this on Amazing Race chunk change money?
I remember that. Okay. Starting off with the alliance. The alliance was originally proposed to us by Robin Brennan when our release date from Songway Village was like at midnight. So they were first. We were about 5 or 10 minutes behind them, and Frank and Margarita were probably 5 to 20 minutes behind us.
Right.
And they waited for us. And then they proposed to have this alliance because they also thought we were the 3 strongest teams. One of the problems with an alliance here is that it's not just an alliance of 6 people. You're also traveling with a cameraman and a sound man. So really, when you go running up to a ticket counter and say, give me 2 tickets for Paris, give me 2 tickets for Paris, they stop, and then you say, really, I need 4 tickets for Paris, because, sound man and cameraman are traveling with
like
me,
our children,
and we can't leave them. They're like our children or whatever, so we need 4.
Excuse me.
With an alliance of 3 teams, what you really need is 12 tickets for Paris. And that really became unworkable. Also, Frank was getting kind of difficult to deal with and to travel with and try to control. So by the time we got to close to Charles de Gaulle Airport,
on the plane.
We're on the plane, and we suggested to Robin Brennan, we want to be in alliance with you, but we don't want to be in alliance with Frank and Margarita anymore. We want to dump them. And they wouldn't do it. So we said, okay, fine, then we're going to go off on our own, and you guys stay in alliance with Frank and Margarita, because there's too many things that are just too difficult to travel with.
Well, and also it seemed very one-sided in the fact that we always had to finish 1, 2, 3 in that same order. We weren't allowed to finish before them. That didn't make sense at all.
If we got there first, we would have to wait for Robin Brennan, because they were first on the first leg, and we agreed to this. And it was that was a non-starter. You
And
know,
we
that wasn't going to happen.
I can tell you, I felt that way once we saw the Eiffel Tower clue that we got in just outside of Songwe Village. Chief Mukini gave us that clue. I was thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to France and probably Paris since we got the Eiffel Tower. So why in the heck do we want to give up all this information? Because we probably are kind of the experts on how to navigate through at least the first part of Paris, going to the Eiffel Tower. So it just kept fomenting in both of our heads, and we finally just said, this isn't going to work. This isn't Survivor. It's a foot race. Whoever gets done first wins the $1 million.
So before we got off the plane in Paris, we actually explained to Rob and Brennan how they can get from Charles de Gaulle Airport down to the Eiffel Tower using the train system, which is called the RER, which is a lot faster than taking a taxi cab from Charles de Gaulle
because of traffic.
If there's bad traffic. And we don't know if there's going to be traffic, but there was traffic or whatever. So we explained to them exactly where to go. This is the train you want to take. This is where you get off to get at the Eiffel Tower. And now you're on your own. And it did not get edited that way. The way it got edited was Joe and Bill lived in Paris for 2 years.
They dumped them.
They're dumping us because they think they've got this big advantage. And it wasn't like that at all.
No. But that's okay. We signed up for that. So, but Joe has a very good saying.
The camera never lies, but editing tells its own story.
And we've used that in every interview since the race.
So flipping back or forward 36 hours. What happened? This was supposed to be after we check in at the Arc de Triomphe. It was supposed to be a 12-hour pit stop, but a bunch of people, including a cameraman and some sound men, got sick in Africa.
Very sick.
So they extended this from a 12-hour to a 36-hour pit stop before we went off on leg number 3.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, we were staying in a hotel in the 8th arrondissement of France that literally was being remodeled and under construction. So we were the only people there.
Oh God!
So when we checked out, let's say 10 o'clock on 2 nights from now or whatever, we just happened to keep our door key with us, and we go off and get the clue, and we ran around a little bit, and then obviously there's nothing open. By now it's midnight,
and it was raining,
and it's raining, and it's cold. It's March, and it's raining like crazy. And we just said to one another, "Well, let's just take a cab back to the hotel and see if the door key works."
And it did.
It's still open because we never checked out. We just left. So our little our code key just still works, and we just went back to bed.
And a lot of people slept on the street.
Yeah.
I think Frank and Margarita.
And Nancy and Emily.
Yeah, there were a couple
I think they were under tarps and leaning against the
metal balance.
Nancy and Emily had a hotel. I know that.
Yeah.
Huh?
I said I know that Nancy and Emily had a hotel just because they were like, we stayed in a hotel, and they're like, everybody else was like, what the heck? Why did you stay there? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. So it was midnight when we were in our old neighborhood. We went looking for our old door, and then we had some hot tea at Cafe Fleur, and then it was like midnight or 12:30, and they were shutting down the bar and restaurant. So we needed to go someplace. So we basically said, let's go try. What's it going to cost? A couple, $5 or $6 if the door doesn't open on the hotel, and if it does, we've got warm beds there. And we can dry out.
Yeah, and it took a while because they had to get permission from the restaurant, Cafe de Fleur, to let us film there. Yeah. Yeah, it was that took a long time just to get that.
Yeah, so obviously I said that I talked to Frank, and a funny other thing about you guys spending money was he figured out one of your last names, and he was charging his meals to you guys. That's what he told me. So did you guys end up paying for that, or what did production?
No, that was
yeah.
They were all charging beers, and they were charging their dry cleaning and everything to our room.
Yeah.
But it just delayed us a couple minutes. But we let production know, and they went, "Oh, okay, we'll take care."
He thought that was very clever, but it didn't work.
I just thought it was funny. But
2 years later, we thought it was funny too.
Yeah. So going into the third leg, you guys had the unfortunate, or one of you had the unfortunate distinction of going down a sewer. So how wonderful was that?
It was one of the things that we never did when we lived in Paris, is go to the égout.
Yeah.
Yes.
Joey.
But it was, you know, it really was not a big deal. You kind of walk the equivalent of maybe 2 blocks underground.
It's not raw sewage.
Yeah, it's more like street water, drainage and stuff. And there was a sidewalk, and you were protected, but it made good TV. I didn't see any rats. I harnessed up myself going down the staircase, or going down the ladder or whatever, because I knew how to do this from the mining industry. So we didn't have to wait for somebody to do this for us. And we kind of leapfrogged ahead of a couple of teams there.
Yeah.
But there was nothing to it. Yeah.
So you finished that, like, I think in 4th place, even though you think you're 3rd, which that was pretty
Right.
fun when you got to the pit stop.
Yeah.
And then you go to
We were
Tunisia.
4th. I thought we would be 3rd.
Yeah. And then you go to Tunisia, which I found this really funny, because it's funny watching you guys back. You guys were the OG villains, but I'm a huge Survivor fan, so I kind of had to compare it. You're kind of like the Jerry Manthe of Survivor in terms of, like, what did she do? What did she do that was so bad? Like, looking back at it, and everybody's just talking shit about them for no reason. And I feel like it's like the same with you guys. So
it is. Yeah, it is, because we were the first ones to do the race. So everyone was friendly, and getting along. And we realized right away, hey, this is a race. We kind of figured this out from how they treated us when we broke the alliance. It was like, well, that was no big deal. I mean, we even helped them out. And then on that ferry from Marseille to Tunis, we were told by one of the producers, story framers, that how does it feel to be the villains? And this was all regarding
the bad boys.
The bad boys, the bad boys. And that was all questions about the ticket buying process for the ferry, if you recall that footage.
Breaking the alliance.
Yeah, so we knew that we were being set up.
Yeah.
We didn't know it until that point. And so we thought, well, whatever we do is going to get edited the way they want it. So we're just going to run the race the way we want to. And some other stuff happened in Tunisia that I'll get into if you want to. But that's kind of how that whole thing got into our head. And not knowing that interview process, and it's sort of like the confessional thing that most reality TV does. And we didn't know any of that. You know, that's sort of like is where they egg you on and, you know, prod you with a fork to get you to spill your guts. And we did on occasion. And, you know, that's what makes good TV, I suppose. So it is what it is, but we played the race the way we felt it was best. And to be honest, it's what every team does now, playing the race. We were just the first to do it, so we got kind of skewered for doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because you even say in like a little confessional, like on the Tunisia thing, I'm surprised, first of all, since you weren't arranging the tickets, why didn't you send them to another country? That's what I would have done. I would have been like, send them on another boat, send them to a different country, and then we'll have like a huge lead.
I'll tell you why I did it. That was a good thing though. That was very good, but I didn't think about that. But we all knew when the boat was coming. By then there were like, how many people were there before we got there? 4 or 5?
Yeah.
There were 4 or 5 teams ahead of us. So I thought, I don't want to get without getting a ticket. So in my twisted mind, I'm going, well, how do I get in front of everybody? So I speak French enough to start talking to the lady behind the counter. My whole thing was just getting a private cabin. That was really all I was trying to do. But also, once I found there were going to be enough tickets to get on board. But I was worried about getting an actual cabin because those were very limited. So what everybody kind of got mad at, because they thought I was trying to, because of a train incident in France, they thought I was trying to, really screw things up for everybody. And so that got tense, and then that's where more stuff happened about us being the villains, the bad guys.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Case in point, if we were so bad when we got on the ship, everybody got a cabin except Lenny and Karen. They would have been stuck without a cabin, and they'd have to kind of sit like in airline seats near the snack bar all night long because they didn't have a cabin. And we invited them into our cabin. We made room for them, and the four of us all stayed together that night. So we couldn't have been too bad if we were doing that. And they did it. They didn't turn down the opportunity.
Right. And they never, to be honest, we became more so the bad guys because on that ferry ride, we knew that no one liked us, basically. We were kind of being ostracized because of stuff that we did. And because I think people honestly could see that we were the team to beat at that point. Because we were making a lot of good moves.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I see it, maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me otherwise if they've said other things about us on other interviews, but we just knew we had to be different in our thinking. We couldn't follow the group. They all were sitting at one big table. We thought, no, we need to have dinner and kind of strategize how we're going to get off the boat first, what we're going to do once we get there. We just were constantly strategizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of the words to describe you from some of the other teams that I've interviewed Pat and Brenda, Karen, she's great. And thanks to Karen for setting up this interview. Shout out to Karen if you're eventually watching this.
Happy birthday, Karen.
But you were described as dastardly, smart, polished, and sneaky at the time. So clearly, you were
that nice.
You were the team to be at the time. So clearly, you were one of the teams to beat. But the Tunisia leg is the leg that you end up winning. But how cool was doing that maze with the little like fire torch or whatever? Because I would want to do that for fun. Like that just looks like something that I would just want to do for fun. So how awesome was that?
Oh, it was. I mean, going into a Roman amphitheater was just like thrilling. I mean, that place was just as beautiful, if not more so, because it was in better condition than the Roman Colosseum.
Yeah, because
it was spectacular. And to have a torch and running, I mean, I get chills thinking about it still. I mean, it was so amazing.
Yeah, I always say if I'm ever going to go on the race, like to that place would be one of the places that I would want to go just because to do that.
The setting, it's really a beautiful, beautiful piece of architecture.
So you finished first place. It's the only leg that you won in your 2 seasons. And unfortunately, you didn't get a prize because Amazing Grace was not offering up prizes then. So
can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
What's interesting about that is the first season, we never, if you look at our finishes in the early part of the season, we never used the fast forward, and that was intentional. So that's why we didn't place first. We had the opportunity, but we didn't use it because we wanted to save it for later in the race if we needed it. So you go.
There's only 2 ways that you can manipulate the show. One of them is to befriend or adopt a weaker team and kind of trail them along with you in the hopes that you're going to knock out.
This is for the first season.
Team number 2, team number 3, and then at the very end of the show, when those guys are gone, you skewer this weaker team that you've been manipulating all the time.
Well,
that's one way, and everybody did it. Number 2 was we were told in advance about the rules, a detour, a roadblock, and the fast forward. And the rules were outlined to us in New York City is that you get to use a fast forward once, and everybody gets to use one. But at the end, and nobody can use it twice, but at the very end of the show, if there is one team that hasn't used the fast forward yet, well, then nobody else can use one either. So you can keep it and deny all those other people, because if like the last 3 or 4 teams, everybody's had a fast forward, they can institute a new fast forward for everybody.
For everybody.
But if one team hasn't used it, then that fast forward is just for them. And they can either use it or not use it.
We should have stuck to that plan.
So this was the original plan. It's like, okay, so we're not going to use it. We're going to make sure that nobody can use one twice and win. And we stuck to that all the way up until about episode number 10 or 11. And then we got nervous in Bangkok.
Yeah.
It was just Nancy and Emily.
Which I'll definitely get to that.
I'm sorry?
I said I'll definitely get to the Bangkok, India, the whole triangle, because I definitely want to get to that later because that's a huge impact on the race. But yeah, that was the only leg that you guys ended up winning. And talking about that strategy that they actually used that in season 2 with Tara and Will. They used that on the last leg to get into the final. So they kind of adopted that strategy from y'all.
Yeah, it really worked, but we just didn't follow our own rules about
We
it.
should just stuck to the plan.
Yeah, so
And we did. We got nervous.
So, well, I would be completely panicked the entire time. My partner, who I want to be on the race with, is like exact opposites of me. Like we have like the same personality, like really bitchy, like really competitive, and like just really loud. But he's like 6'4", like 230 baseball player, and I'm like 6'3", 120. So he's like going to carry me, and like he's my version of Xanax. That's what I'm saying. So I completely get really nervous and paranoid because I would be concerned about getting eliminated, which is when Phil finds you and you don't find him.
Yes,
so
right. Yeah.
I completely understand the nerves. So
it's one of the bigger things. Your body is so supercharged by adrenaline, you make terrible decisions.
So going into the 5th leg, you go into I think it was like the Tunisian desert. So how cool is it going to like, I'm not sure, like I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but how cool is it going to like the set of Star Wars and trying to find the walkie-talkie? And you guys were kind of like scaling buildings, and one of you almost broke your hip or something because you like scaled it, and one of you had to catch the other one. I remember.
I don't remember that. Are you sure that was us?
Yeah, it was. I think it was Joe and Bill had to catch you, man. You were like, "What are you doing?" You were like, almost like a mother like telling its child, like, "Stop, what are you doing? I can't catch you. And then you ended up catching it. So,
well, we'll have to look. I don't remember that, but it was crazy because we could hear it. We got so close to it, we could hear it, but we couldn't figure out which room it was in. But that was fun. I'm a Star Wars fan, but I'd never realized that was the site. I mean, Brennan knew that inside and out, but I didn't know that's what it was.
Yeah. So
just goes to show you he's more geeky than we are.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that, but after the cool Star Wars detour, you have to ride a camel in the Tunisian desert. And first of all, I give you mad props for not getting lost, because that just seemed like hell driving through that.
Oh, yes. That was very hard.
Yeah,
it was.
But obviously I talked to Karen, and she said that they had a lot of trouble with their camels, and that he was spitting on Lenny, and they were completely miserable. Well, did you guys have any trouble with your camels? She said that he was.
No.
I was walking.
You were walking. I was riding. It really wasn't all that far either. I mean, you're really
100 yards.
Yeah, it's a football field. Is that you're riding this camel? And they showed me like yelling at the guy because I couldn't get off the camel, and I was worried that somebody was going to get to the finish line before us.
You kind of had to run.
Kevin and Drew were in first place that time.
Yeah. They beat us.
And so, they naturally showed me screaming at everybody, making the camel kneel down so I can jump off or whatever.
Yeah, I had a hard time getting.
And I think we had a compass. It was like, what do you need a compass for? We're just going over there.
Yeah, you could almost see where we were going, but it was we had to run in deep sand with our backpacks, so it was kind of hard.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful being in the Sahara Desert. Was beautiful.
Yeah.
And we got there right around sunset.
Yeah.
So.
And then we were supposed to spend the night there that night in tents, but a sandstorm was kicking up.
Yeah.
So we had to leave there and hightail it back to Tunis.
And Amy and Paula got lost.
Yeah.
On the way there.
Yeah.
So part of that afternoon was spent sitting around wondering if they were going to make it back.
Yeah, or if they were alive, probably.
Or if they were alive.
Yeah, it was pretty scary. You could tell just by the look on everyone's face, all the producers. It was not going well.
Yeah, so after that, you go to Italy, and this was a huge part of the race. So I want to get the full scoop of what was your whole side of the story of what actually happened in the airport, because obviously we saw that it was edited, and this was like a huge turn of like, in the beginning, like you guys were villains in terms of like, which honestly, excuse my language, but it was complete bullshit why you were considered villains when you were passing someone in a pendulum where they didn't know where they were going, and people thought that was unethical. Like, I'm sorry, it's a race. Like, what do you like? It's a race for $1
Let
million.
me preface it.
Those are two different things. That sort of came from the fact that Brendan and Rob were sort of entitled that they were always supposed to go first everywhere. We were third in line. They walked right past the gate. So we went in where the gate was open. There was a woman kind of waving everyone to go in there, and no one went. So we thought, okay, let them go. We'll just go in. They passed it.
Yeah.
They weren't paying attention. But the thing about the airport, let me just say, to what happens at the conclusion is people apologize to us. The attorneys say we did nothing wrong and we didn't push anyone. So let me just say that, those three things. And to be honest with you, where the big infraction, in air quotes, happened was not at the gate to the airplane. It was a security junction before you get to the terminals.
Where they check your passport and they check your boarding pass and make sure you have all your documents and everything else. We hadn't even gotten to metal detectors yet.
And so what happened was Joe and I.
Let me preface everything with we're going from
Family.
Tunisia to Italy, and there's this big giant airport.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's right.
in
I saw
all
that.
of Italy.
Yeah.
So nobody can get to Italy very easily, and all the planes are grounded and delayed for 12 hours. And some people are going through Switzerland and coming back down again. And you can sit here and wait for the direct flight to Rome, but it's going to be leaving in 14 hours, not an hour from now, et cetera, et cetera. So now you go.
Yeah. So the point I was making was there was a family with a couple of children and a big luggage cart, and I said, you know, we don't have to go right now, and I would like to be right in front of the other team so we can slow them up a little bit. That really was my thought. That was it. That was the extent of it. They're not going to miss their plane. They're being led by an airport personnel. So they're going to make the plane is being held for these passengers.
What about what Drew said?
Hold on. And so what we did is we let the family go first, and then we got right behind them because we were in line. There was a line. So when Drew and Kevin and the rest of the teams came up behind us, they started kind of saying, well, you got to let us go first. Well, no, we're in line before you is what I told them. But what happens that Joe was just reminding me, when we were getting tickets in the Tunisian airport, I was speaking French to the ticket lady, and I said, you know, we need to get to Italy as soon as possible. And I know that some teams have tickets. Can you tell us the best way to go and how we can do it, and please help me, and don't tell the guys behind me what you're doing for us because we're in a race. And so that was all I said. And then after I said that, I turned around to look to say something to Joe, and someone from another team, I'm not going to say who because he's apologized for it since, said, I'm going to break your legs if you prevent us.
He said, and these are the first words that we've ever spoken to him in 2 weeks of traveling. We never even said hello to these people.
Oh,
and he said, if you're telling her not to sell us tickets, I'm going to break your legs.
So he said that to me.
Yeah, to him.
So anyway, that did not sit well for a gay man who's now going to be his first time on national television. I didn't want to look weak. I mean, that was like shocking. It was like a big slap in the face, like, fuck, I'm back in high school again. Sorry, my French.
Dude, say whatever you want. I've had a lot of people say a lot worse. So
okay.
This
so
is not
it just
not for kids.
It just really pissed me off. I thought, I don't want to be seen as this weak kid. I'm here, first of all, to win the race with Joe. That was what I told the producers. I'm gay second. I'm here to win the race first. And I thought, God damn it, here it comes again. It's like, why do every time I'm in my life when I'm enjoying something, I have to get smacked down because, people think they can push me around. So I just stood right back up to him. And I thought it was stupid, but I thought this is a way that I can make him even madder by getting in front of them and slowing them down, even though I knew they were going to be on time for their flight. So that's the whole story. And as I said, as I prefaced the story, they had to apologize to us. The attorney said we did nothing wrong once they reviewed the tape. And as a matter of fact, Drew and Kevin had pushed Emily and Nancy into us because
Yeah.
we were in front of them.
Yeah.
How can we shove them if we're in front of them?
We were standing at the customs or the border control agent, and we're making believe that we can't find our passport and where's my boarding pass, and they're being led on by an airport personnel because they have the plane waiting for them, holding for them at their gate. They're going to Switzerland and then coming back down to Rome. We're going direct. And we're just standing there.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we get accused of pushing Nancy and knocking Nancy down and all this other stuff. And we're just literally just standing there with our backpacks blocking them.
So it got resolved in Ferrara, Italy.
Yeah.
They had a meeting about it, and that was the end of it.
Yeah. And they were forced to apologize.
That's not the way it was edited, but I was satisfied with that apology.
Well,
Because there was also some stuff going on at the wedding cake and
at the Vittorio Emanuele Monument in Rome.
Some other stuff happened that added to what my earlier complaint about Tunis. So they took care of all of that in Ferrara. We had a team, a race meeting, and they got it all out and said, look, this is a race. There's no physical altercations here.
Yeah.
And they did a very good job of handling that.
So then why do you think that Emily was so, like, what I saw when we were watching was that Emily and Nancy, like, Emily was a little bit emotional, which I completely understand. Like, she's 21, and it's like high stress situation. So was that before the meeting or after?
That was before the meeting.
Before the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, after the race, Nancy and Emily came and stayed at our house. We became very good friends.
Yeah.
We talked about it with them, and there was, some very tense conversations with Nancy and Emily. When I explained her side of the story, we became friends after that. I apologized. I said, I'm sorry it unfolded the way it did, but, look, we like you. We don't have any problem with you. And, there was other things said that weren't quite so nice, but in the end, they became our friends after the race. They came and stayed with us. So that's all I care about. It's not necessary to explain it. We are friends.
Yeah, that's great. I that was just a huge part of the show, and I think it might have definitely maybe been one of the reasons that you might have been asked for All Stars, and it was definitely a huge focal part of the episode. So I had to ask it.
No,
That's all right.
we understand. We get asked that question all the time.
If it wasn't for this sort of stuff, Drew and Kevin and Joe and Bill would never have been on All Stars.
Yeah, and I definitely want to get to All Stars too, because I watched all those. This podcast is really long because you guys were in a lot of episodes and you're one of the most iconic teams. So I definitely want to make sure I get all my information down to the viewers.
Yeah.
Please edit any way you feel appropriate. We're used to that.
So don't worry, I'm really good at promoting and editing and stuff. So I'll make sure that the podcast is great. You'll have nothing to worry about.
Just remember my saying.
Camera never lies, but editing tells its own
story. The only things I ever edit are my dumb rants or when I say or some stupid bad cut, like that just doesn't. You're
asking really, really good questions. You're doing a good job.
So after the first of all, how annoyed were you when one of you had to drive a smart car and the other one had to just sit on their butt in Ferrari and just like chill?
The only thing that bothered me in the smart car is I was talking to this lady and she couldn't speak very good English, and she was explaining to me how to get to this village, and she had me totally screwed up so that I had made a right instead of a left, leaving the showroom, and I literally ended up in a cornfield 3 miles away, and had to turn this thing around. I had never even heard of a smart car, let alone driven one or seen one before. I was like, this was totally new to me. And eventually I got there. I had to make a U-turn, trust my better judgment that this is not right when I'm in this cornfield or whatever. And he got to drive in a Ferrari, ride in a Ferrari.
Where's Lagonda?
Yeah,
it was Lagonda. Lagonda.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really incredible car and scary as hell. The thing was going 90 mile an hour down this little tiny Italian road.
Yeah, it's all 2-lane roads there.
They must have closed the roads because we were going so fast. It was crazy.
My favorite was Drew and Kevin, where the one gets out and he's like, "Oh, I drove in the Ferrari." And he's like, "Are you freaking kidding me? Like, I've done all this hard shit and you sat on your butt and got absolutely nothing." And I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah, it was
priceless.
fun. It was pretty amazing. That's the best thing about the races. You never know what you're going to do from minute to minute. It's so much fun.
So after you do the little bike riding detour in Italy, you have to go to India. So how bad was like that little, I mean, you guys finished second in that little roadblock where you had to, where basically the guy was like your bicycle driver and you just had to find some guy in a little hut. But how bad was India in general? Because that looks like if you could like send me to one place where it's like you don't have to go to one place on the race, I would say India, because that looked awful and completely miserable. So how bad was that? Because
well, Joe had been to India on a couple business trips, so he kind of prepared me for the worst of it. So when we got there, I didn't see anything that I thought was as bad as what he warned me about.
Yeah.
And so it didn't shock me at all. Had we been to Bangkok yet?
Yeah.
So I mean,
not by then, but we've been to Bangkok before.
Before the race?
Yeah. Well, on vacation.
Yeah. So I've been to Bangkok, and that's, I mean, traffic-wise, a lot of that's very similar. But yeah, India, to me, was beautiful. It was a beautiful country, and the people, even though they had nothing, these children were their eyes were so beautiful and smiling, and it just really taught me to be grateful for everything we have.
Yeah.
So yeah, it didn't bother me at all.
And to survive the ugly parts of India, really, you can be totally overwhelmed by it. So you really just have to kind of tune it out and not ignore it, but kind of come close to ignoring it, or else you'll be totally overwhelmed by the whole thing. You can't give money to everybody. You give money to one person and you're going to be thronged by 150 children or other people who need it just as much as anybody else. You just can't do much about it. And here again, you're on a race. You're not, you're not there to be Mother Teresa.
I felt bad for Nancy and Emily because it really
that's why.
affected them.
Yeah, that's why India kind of scars me, because all I can imagine is them just like crying. And I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I heard in the next leg that they were like so sexist towards them that they made it a non-elimination leg just because it would look bad or something. But I wasn't sure if that was true or not during the 8th leg.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That's interesting. I don't know about that, but I know it was very hard for them, and it's true.
Yeah.
Women are definitely ostracized and criticized for traveling alone. You're supposed to be with your husband or
a brother or a father or whatever.
Yeah, that was very difficult.
No, it's tough. Yeah. But I never heard anything about a non-elimination there and trying to favor them.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just what I read on like the forums and stuff like that. So who knows?
That's interesting. Yeah.
If it's true or not. But so then what was it like in the next leg? You got to go to like the Taj Mahal and stuff like that. So what was that like? Because I mean, you got to go to the Taj Mahal, the Eiffel Tower, the Great Wall of China, which I'll get to in a little bit. What was that like?
Amazing. Well, at first it was hard because we were in a hotel that overlooked the park where the Taj Mahal was. So for what, 12 hours or 24 hours?
Probably 24.
I think it was a 24-hour pit stop.
Yeah.
So we were there looking at the Taj Mahal for like 24 hours. So that was kind of hard. And we got letters from that wasn't aired, but that was the place where we were sitting in chairs with the Taj Mahal behind us, and we got letters from our families, kind of a la Survivor, but they never aired any of that. So that was fun, but to read those letters, but sorry that didn't get aired. But it was an amazing thing. Again, it was on my bucket list to go to the Taj Mahal and the Great Wall of China. So it just, every time you opened up the clue, you just knew it was going to be something incredible. I mean, it's just amazing.
So going into the India leg, you guys choose rowboat over the elephant because probably the elephant was really slow. But was that bad? Just because I have a fear, I don't like boats at all. And you obviously had to do multiple boat rides, like in Thailand too, in a roadblock. But how bad were the boats? Because you guys seem to struggle a little bit and kind of argue a bit. So how bad was your boating experience, or was it not as bad as you thought?
What was that? We were stressed out because we had to take a bus to that location, not a taxi. So we're stressed out more about that. We were trying to catch up, and we didn't do a very good job rowing. I do remember it, but
I hardly
remember. That was going out to the island with the yogi.
Swami,
Swami. It was such a beautiful setting. I think we were just stressed out because we were short of money. We'd been catching up all day. We really were worried about getting eliminated. So it was more that than anything. We just wanted to keep going as fast as we could. And, it just gets to you. You're so tired and stressed out, you just fall apart.
So why did you guys struggle with like the train tickets or whatever? Because I think you guys were like second to depart, and then you got to like the train station or whatever, and then you just like really struggled. Was that just like a barrier of communication, or what was
no, because of the bus. It was the bus. We took a bus instead of a taxi from Taj Mahal to Beaconer. You're talking about?
I'm talking
the Beaconer
about
train.
The train, like right when you got caught up with Nancy and Emily, like or whatever, like that little train station. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, we took a bus, and everyone else was we were taking taxis from Taj Mahal to, I forget the city.
That would be Beaconer. No, it's Rajasthan. No, it was the place where the
temple.
The Palace of the Winds was.
Yeah, whatever city that was.
I forget the name. Jaipur.
Yeah, it was Jaipur.
Yeah.
Everyone else had taken taxis. We didn't have enough money. We ran out of money. So we had to take a bus. So it put us behind. But we were happy we got there, and Nancy and Emily were there in the station. So that was the first time we got to spend more time with them and kind of shield them from the men, because we could accompany them and help them buy their tickets and stuff. It really was hard for them to do all of that.
Yeah, I felt that's like why I would not want to go to India. But so maybe just talk about so obviously you make it through that and you finish fourth, and then you have to I forgot how bad was the rat temple, because that would scare me, because I'm like, can you get some sort of disease from that? But you have to be like
it's not. Here's the deal. In the middle of the night, it was worse. We heard. By the time we got there, it was like it
was like 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. It was early morning, and the rats were dead tired, I guess. When I went in there, they weren't running across my feet. They were everywhere. Don't get me wrong. But mostly over where the clue was at the end of the rat temple, because you have to kind of go through the whole maze of the temple before you get to where the clues were. And they were everywhere and in there. So I got lucky because mostly they kind of stayed away from me. You kind of learn to like shuffle, and they kind of scurry away from that noise. And, it just didn't bother me. And I kind of knew enough from a little bit of an orientation. I forget I think they talk to you a little bit before you go in, so you're respectful of the temple. And they see the rats as their ancestors. So I wanted to go in with that feeling. I didn't want to piss anybody off by doing the wrong thing and screaming or, shoving my foot into a rat or something to get it out of the way. So I just made it through there as quick as I could, got the clue, and got out. And I can't remember seeing more than about 10 or 15 rats. And we heard that people that went through there earlier in the day had more exposure to the rats. So
yeah,
in that way I was there with Emily doing that. So again, we kind of worked together to get in and out there quick.
Yeah, so you barely finish ahead of them, because like once they arrive, you can see like you guys in the background like stepping off the pit stop and maybe going somewhere. So I don't really know how close that.
Yeah, it was very close. As a matter of fact, we were so close that we got out of the car before the place we were supposed to. We got out of the cab and ran across to the pit stop instead of from the doorway of the hotel back to the pit stop. So that's why we beat them. Remember that in Beaconer?
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
At the Lakshmi's Niwas Palace.
Yeah.
It was a Maharaja's temple, like his home, they turned into a hotel. Yeah, that's the only reason we beat them. It was very, very close.
Yeah, so then this is a huge part of the race, because it actually ends up costing you the entire race, the dreaded ninth leg, which, no offense, I think what happens in the ninth leg should not affect your position in the 13th leg or whatever the last leg was. But thankfully they learned that the next season, but it was unfortunate for you. So
Yeah, it was because of us that that's changed.
So why did you decide to go for the fast forward? I mean, you're obviously near the back of the pack, but why didn't you just let Nancy and Emily have it? Because no disrespect for them, they kicked butt for being like they were the last all-girl team standing. Like nobody would have expected them to make it as far as they did. So why didn't you just let them have it and maybe just try to catch up?
We should have.
Yeah, we would have. Number one, we were getting nervous, and it's coming down to everybody else has used the fast forward. Also, on previous fast forwards, when people won it, they bounced ahead so far that they had
24 hours,
like an 18 to a 24-hour lead on everybody else. So we're getting very late into the race here, and we thought, okay, well, that's going to continue, is that if we can get 18 hours ahead of everybody else, that is really going to put us in a terrific position.
Good advantage.
So
wrong.
Yeah, wrong. So we stayed up all night long, slept outside, totally mosquito bitten all night, waiting for the temple to open up.
Sorry.
You're good.
We got a low battery problem here. Hit close right there.
Okay.
So you're not eating well, you're nervous, you didn't sleep well, and suddenly we just started getting a little spooked by the whole thing. So we broke our rule of not using the fast forward ever, and we said, okay, let's go for it. And looking back on it, I wish we didn't. Let them have it, and we would have slugged it out with the other four.
Yeah, so you go to that really beautiful like temple, and you play this weird game where you have like a bunch of rocks, and you have to like have one rock remaining at the end, or no rocks, or something like that. You play basically a game of chance, and you end up getting it. You've probably been asked this question a million times. Why did you go for the bus? Did you ever ask somebody for a taxi? And did all that money, because a bunch of people told me, like, this is no ill will, no nothing towards that you guys kind of spent lavishly on hotels and stuff like that. So did the extra money on like...
Not at all.
No,
okay. It's not at all.
It's not true.
The true story is that
we call it our $1 million bus ride.
We got the clue said you have to go to Krabi, Thailand, which was about 600 miles away. It's 1,000 kilometers away, way down at the bottom of Thailand near the Malaysian border. And you could take a train, a bus, or a taxi cab. You could not take an airplane. So we go down to the bus station, and we're standing in line trying to check out bus schedules and tickets or whatever. And we're standing in front of this lady who spoke perfect English, and she, where are you guys going? What are you doing? So we explained everything, and we're going to Krabi. And she said, oh, well, I'm going to Krabi too. And so, okay, and we have to check out whether to take a taxi cab or a bus or a train or whatever. And she was so helpful. She said, well, you've already missed the morning train. So there's not another train for, say, another 10 or 11 hours or whatever. So forget the train. And then Krabi is 1,000 kilometers from here, and you could never afford to go there in a taxi cab because it's just too expensive. So you have to take the bus and roll in line to get a bus ticket or whatever. And she was so helpful. And again, we were tired. We hadn't been eating, hadn't been sleeping. And we just kind of took her word for it and said, looking back on it, she couldn't take a taxi cab. But we had more than enough money to take a taxi cab.
That was going to be my next question.
All we had to do was just walk out of the bus station through some glass doors. There's a taxi queue right there, and say, how much does it cost to go to Krabi?
Dumb mistake.
We want to go to Krabi. And they would have said, it's like $160 or whatever it was. We easily had enough money, but we just believed this lady. She was so kind and so helpful, and she spoke such perfect English that we just kind of assumed that she knew what she was talking about.
It's really known now as like a late race mistake.
Yeah.
Up at that point, we had a rule to verify any information we we use on the race 3 times, verify it, not once, not twice, but 3 times. We didn't do that. We only trusted her word. And a lot of teams, if you watch, make bad mistakes near the end of the race because you're tired out, you're not thinking smart anymore, you're just totally stressed out. And that was our mistake.
Yeah,
we own it.
Yeah, you can't stay at the top of the race and be number 1 and number 2 all the time. Both Robin Brennan and Frank and Margarita have had their own episodes in Tunisia, where they came in next to last or 2 from last or whatever, almost got eliminated, and our mistake just happened too late in the show, and we didn't have enough race to catch up.
And now because of that mistake, they have airport bunching, and that's really our mistake. Yeah, equalizers. That's what happens now because they gave us a lot of leeway in the first season. We could do whatever we wanted to.
There was Amazing Race 2 or 3. 2 guys got stuck in Australia, like for 36 hours while the show was ending. We're in San Francisco or wherever it was. And I'm sure production said, we're never going to allow this to happen again, where it's only down to 2 teams. We need to have 3 teams at the end.
Yeah.
So they completely changed it after those guys got stuck in Australia.
I think it was you in season.
Stuck in Alaska.
I'm sorry?
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was you guys in season 4 where there was. I think there was I forget their names, but they were like a team of best friends, and they finished in third or whatever.
That was it.
Yeah. But so what is your reaction? So you're on this bus, you're probably thinking, okay, we're in first place, we've got this fast forward, and you arrive to the pit stop and you see Nancy and Emily, and I'm not sure if Phil told you that you were last, but what are you thinking? Because at this point you're probably like,
no,
holy
here's what happened. We get up to the temple, and the first thing you see is you have to take your shoes off before you go into the temple. There were a lot of sandals and shoes sitting there at the entrance. So that was our clue, because everyone was staying in this temple overnight, and we saw all the remaining teams must have had their shoes there. Either that or production arranged for them to be there. So I knew immediately we were last. And I thought, okay, this is it. We're going to be out. So I knew even before we saw Nancy and Emily.
Yeah. So how shocked were you to receive that news that they quit? I mean, obviously it helped you guys, but it seemed like Nancy was checked out, and I felt kind of bad for Emily. But how shocked were you? Were you
Oh, it was. We knew our memory of this race was in our position in this race was sealed. We were definitely the villains after this leg. When we heard Phil say, Bill and Joe, you were the last to arrive, but then he brought Nancy and Emily and said, I need to have Nancy and Emily sit here with you. And I thought, what the hell? Why are they coming in? And
all 4 of us are crying. We don't understand what it is that's happening.
And they knew. They knew.
They knew what they did.
But
we didn't know what they did.
It was horrible.
So
I felt so terrible.
It was really awful.
I would love to.
There was no way we wanted to win.
Yeah.
We didn't want to win that leg that way. It's just, we didn't win. I mean, not get eliminated.
But here again, it's editing, and it's giving good TV, and this is what they wanted to cast everybody as.
Well, that's weird that I don't think they really did that in that leg, because the way that I saw it, and this is just my perspective, is you saw that, and then you were really nice to them. You were hugging them, and you were I'm so sorry that this happened. So it was weird.
Oh, well, we honestly felt like that.
Yeah.
And that was, by then, we'd become friends with them by then. And I just said that I don't know that they showed it on camera, but
we did.
I looked at both of them immediately and said, I can't believe this is happening. How horrible. I mean, we're so sorry. And I think they had enough time to think about it, because we were significantly later than them. I think they had to wake them up.
But think of it now, is that there were people who did infractions on our show, including us earlier, and you get a 30-minute penalty. All the Amazing Races afterwards, there's people who did a lot of things bad, and maybe you have to wait 3 hours or 4 hours because you wouldn't complete a task or whatever. They gave them a 24-hour penalty.
Yeah, that's
for
a
not
little rough.
a license plate in Bangkok, and just kind of jumping to the next task. I guess somebody told them what to do, and that to me was totally uncalled for, especially when you look at 33 races of history. Nobody's ever gotten a 24-hour penalty.
Yeah, nobody.
Well, again, right.
Yeah.
I think our race was the guinea pig, and they had to restructure it in order to make it work for everyone. The people, the producers, the audience, the contestants.
I mean, even on the way down from Bangkok, they're in a taxi cab, and Emily is reaching down on the floorboards of the cab to get a bottle of water or whatever, and she puts her hand on a scorpion.
Oh my God!
And gets stung,
Yeah.
and had to stop. They had to go to a hospital on the way down.
So that's really bad.
So it's like, and that never got into the show at all. So it's like it was just incredible things that they went through, and then they still got a 24-hour penalty, which was totally unreasonable.
They did a tremendous job to make it that far in the race.
Yeah,
they really did.
Yeah,
but it saved our neck.
I would love to interview Emily eventually if you guys know where she is, because apparently nobody else knows where she is.
She's in Texas, but I don't. We've lost touch.
Yeah, apparently nobody knows where she is. She's like the Where's Waldo of the group. So.
Well, she's happily married. We know that. I'm sure she has children. So, congratulations to the couple.
Yeah. So after that, you guys go to Thailand, and you get to kayak, snorkel, and climb cliffs. So how cool is that? Just because that looked like really serene, like it almost looked like the Survivor locations like that they film in. I'm not sure.
It really, it was. It was incredible.
Harness.
Well, they actually even gave us a little time off there. They let us all hang out on a boat that took us all over the area and rode around for the day. I mean, that was another long pit stop, like a 24-hour pit stop.
Yeah.
But they had that beach party, if that's what you're talking about. And we didn't go to every party, but we went to that one and the one in India that I remember. And there was an oil lit fire thing where, this is Luca, where we were sitting there and I felt something go sizzling past my ear in the air. Like I could hear something burning and huge big drops of oil that were burning, and they were flying past us, and one even got on my shirt and burned it. So we had to move back. It was really a beautiful area. They gave us massages on the beach, and we had food, and it was nice, very relaxing.
You want to tell the story about the harness rock climbing?
Oh, you can tell that one. Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it, but Joe saved my life.
So here we go, climbing up halfway up this mountain. And we're going to do this rock climbing thing with this harness on, and I think we're in last place. Yeah. Kevin and Drew have already done it,
right?
And the guy who's in charge of this production guy who's in charge of a local person of the rock climbing group is explaining to us how this harness works. And you got to put this thing, in between your legs or whatever, and then you're going to get connected to the road or the rope or whatever. And you're going to climb up here. And I'm not understanding how this thing is going to hold us or whatever. And before Bill does it, I said, well, can you explain this one more time and show us how this is going to work or whatever? And he said, oh, there's nothing to it. And Bill's in the harness already. It's like, you just do this. And he pulls on the harness and it doesn't hold. So if Bill had been going up or whatever.
No, I was going down.
I
was repelling.
Oh, yeah, okay, that was repelling, yeah. So it doesn't hold at all. And if we had not asked a question, ask again.
I would have died.
Yeah, he would have fallen like 35, 40 feet.
Into rocks and water.
Which would have given a completely different ending of the show.
Yeah, I bet. So how nice was it, Joe, to sit on your butt and relax in a kayak and enjoy the wonderful waters of Thailand while Bill was doing all the paddling?
Actually, Joe was helping.
Yeah.
We had to do that really fast to kind of make sure we kept up with everybody. But we thought there probably won't be like any other way to win this, but just by staying positive and doing everything as fast and as smart as we can, because we knew we were 12 hours behind, which became 24 by the time we got to the Great Wall. But, you know, we enjoyed ourselves in Thailand. We just wished we could have been going earlier, you know, that we just kept hoping there was going to be some equalizer, but never happened.
Yeah, so there Thailand, you were spared elimination. And I said this was one of the only good mechanics in season 1 that they changed in terms of format, was you guys didn't get a penalty. So I guess you were lucky on that front. But after that, you go to China, and you're basically in a two-way race with Kevin and Drew. So how nasty was like that chicken feet and larva and all that stuff? And maybe talk about how close that foot race was, because it looked close based on editing, but was it really that close?
No, it wasn't. No, and also I'll let Joe talk mostly about the contest, but the funny part was we were so hungry and we had enough money that we went and had a huge breakfast right before that contest.
McDonald's.
We both had like double breakfasts at McDonald's. So say, go ahead. We had to go to the night market and eat it.
And then we get in this eating race or whatever, and
against Drew,
me against Drew, and basically just had to concentrate on scarfing down this food. It wasn't bad at all. I remember the one thing that we had a chicken's foot, and it kind of puffed up once it was boiled in oil. And I had never eaten a chicken's foot before. I didn't know what to do, so I was just kind of like putting it. It was a bone in the middle, and ugly skin, and a toenail. And eventually, I said I kind of was eating it like sort of like an artichoke leaf or whatever, just pulling off the skin. And you don't know when you're done with it. And if you like take food back to the counter and the guy says you're not done, you got to go back and sit down and eat some more or whatever. So I had to ask one of the production guys, like, do I have to eat the toenails too? I remember that. And Drew was finished about 30 seconds before I was.
It was close.
Yeah, it was very close. And then we all had to fly into cabs.
Yeah. So was that? Was that?
If I can jump ahead with the next segment. Previous to this, in Bangkok, we had purchased
what we thought were two books.
Yeah, two different tour guides of China. I wanted one on Beijing and one on China, and I mistakenly got two on Beijing and none on China. So we wasted $7 in Bangkok because I got two books that were nearly identical and didn't realize it. Flipping through these books earlier, and just kind of looking at the glossary, it's the back of the book near the appendix or whatever, they've got a whole bunch of translated words or whatever. And I just happened to remember that I had seen the word south in one book and gate in another book. And when we were done with the eating contest and got into the cabs, we needed to go to Tien Tien Park, but go to the south gate. And Tien Tien Park is about the size of Central Park with 4 entrances all along. And in the cab ride, and we have a cab driver that doesn't speak any English. So we're screaming like Tien Tien Park, Tien Tien Park. And then I remembered, I started screaming at Bill, give me the books, because I know I've got the words for South Gate. If I could just find them and say them properly,
or show them
I can explain to this guy that we just don't want to go anywhere in Tien Tien Park. We need to go to the South Gate. So as a result, we got the glossaries out. I could tell the guy South Gate. He's like, and then we got there, and we were probably 7 or 8 minutes ahead of Drew and Kevin.
At least,
yeah. They went to the East Gate, so they had to run through the park, equivalent of about a quarter of Central Park.
And we got out of our cab right at the pit stop.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, because it seemed like that's what it seemed like. Because you guys like hopped over the fence like you were like little federal agents or something like that.
Well, it all happened so fast that we didn't have a chance to exit the South Gate by the time they got there. Well, I mean, we did interviews and everything else, and then they showed up, and they didn't want like all four of us, like, you know, Team Guido welcoming Drew and Kevin to their elimination there.
They wanted it to be a surprise.
So literally we couldn't leave because they would see us leaving. So production had us hide behind this VW van down on our hands and knees.
Literally next to
literally while they're on the other side of the car getting eliminated.
That's weird because they usually do that now. Like even in a couple of seasons, we see people like on the mat greeting people. So it's weird.
Yeah.
It's not weird. It's weird to see that change. So going into the finale, like what was your mindset? Like obviously you have a 1 in 3 chance of winning $1 million, but they did have some equalizers in the race, like the India one where you had to go to the Taj Mahal because Frank and Margarita. I think it's funny because the 2 seasons that you were on, you guys are the only people, or like your seasons are the only seasons to have people still completing a leg while somebody is leaving for the next leg. And it happened on both of your seasons.
Yes, tell me, we knew that in spades. We thought, here it goes again. The same thing's happening, just like season 1.
But
it was
yes,
horrible.
So they had that equalizer. So I bet in the back of your mind, you're probably thinking, okay, there's gonna be an equalizer because it's 1 in 3 teams, and they got to make this interesting. So they kind of tried to do that with getting to the Taj Mahal at a certain time, but you guys departed so late that you even went to the next day. So maybe talk about like your whole mindset, because like we didn't really get to see much of you guys just in the finale just because you guys were so far behind. So like what were you thinking? Were you like, screw this production, or like?
No, we actually in Alaska, we were thinking by then, I was thinking screw this production when we were on our way to the Tiantan Park, because I thought if Drew and Kevin beat us, we're out. So Joe kept me going through that phase. He said, no, we're going to be first. We're going to be first. So we got there and checked out. So we were still in the race. But then by the time we got to Alaska, it was really looking grim. I mean, we had no way of knowing how far ahead they were.
Yeah.
We could tell from the places we stayed in the same places that Brennan and Rob and Frank and Margarita were, but we didn't know. Something could have happened. One of them could have.
You don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know. We're going back to America. You don't know what you have to do in America. You know, you could have been flying around to a couple of different cities and there was a chance of catching up.
It was the first season. So.
We had no idea. And so as a result, you remained positive the whole time. We weren't really, we were probably clueless that we were out until they told us we were out, you know, and it was all over.
Yeah, until it was over.
But up until then, man, we were still fighting hard.
They were very, very cagey. There was no way we knew. We really had very little contact with anyone. That should have been the biggest clue, was because usually you're seeing producers and stuff come around with camera. I mean, all of that seemed to get sparse by the time we were on our last day, which we didn't know it was our last day.
Yeah.
So, you know, we just stayed positive because you never know on the race.
Yeah.
You really never know. I've seen so many times where contestants think they're last and they're going to get eliminated, and then they show up and they're not. So we just had to stay positive.
We had experiences in Tunisia where 1 minute we're thinking that we're last, and that's the only episode where we actually came in first. And we had no idea even why for a while.
Yeah, we had no idea we were going to be first there. That was really surprising.
Yeah, I just interviewed the blonde bandits from this season and the 2 blonde girls, and they were like, because they're from Charleston, the same hometown I'm from, and so they were like, we thought we were last like for 5 legs in a row. So I totally get that feeling. And it's almost like, I feel like, and this is just my perspective from a viewer, and maybe you could elaborate on this. It's almost like you want to think you're in last, so when you finish higher, like you have better expectations. And you're like, oh my God, we did so good compared to we're going to finish first. And then we finish like 5th. And I'm like, crap.
You kind of want to give you want to give yourself pep talks, and I don't know that we ever use that, but
you have no idea how happy you can be to not be eliminated.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you're thinking about the whole time, is that don't let me be eliminated or whatever. Let me just let me survive another 2 days.
So
if nothing else, the race is so much fun. Even if you know at some point you're not going to win, you're so excited to see what's going to happen the next day. It really does just draw you into that as much as it could.
Yeah, so I just have a couple more questions about season 1, and then I would love to talk about All Stars because I have some questions about that too. If you guys don't mind staying on, thank you for doing this. But so what was it like going on the Great Wall of China, and was that like steep climb like really difficult because you kind of looked tired and it looked kind of miserable and it just looked like a nightmare?
Yeah,
So,
well, it was pretty energetic. It took a lot of energy to climb up there or run up there.
It was cold.
It was cold. It was high. It was a lot of work. You never know exactly what's coming next. Or do you leave your backpack behind because you're just going to go back and get it, or find out that, oh God, we're going to like move on and your backpack is back where you started or something. So you just never know. But it was like a lifetime experience. I mean, how many people can say that they've actually climbed up a big piece of the Great Wall of China and stuff and have it on film? You can watch it forever if you want.
Yeah,
it was cool.
It was pretty exciting. Again, another bucket list item. I just couldn't believe it. The only one we didn't do actually was the pyramids. So we did everything I wanted to do on that race except for the pyramids.
So going to Alaska, you guys obviously did like the cool mush dog test, but what did you do afterwards? Did they just send you home? Because we obviously saw like you guys with a little note. Like, how disappointing was it? Maybe like not only that you don't win, but you don't get to be reunited with the other teams. Like, what did you do afterwards? Because
we got reunited. Actually, what was nice, they let us do the mush ride, and we asked to do that, and they kind of had to get permission. And what ended up happening is they needed to get those dogs back to the highway, so they let us mush it ourselves rather than them doing it. And once we got finished with that, they drove us into town. And before we got on the plane, because our flight left at,
I don't remember what time it left.
I think it was an evening flight. We flew overnight. Yeah. And so they let us get a hotel room and take a shower.
Yeah.
So they were really nice about the way it all ended. And then we did get greeted at which airport were we at?
Newark Airport.
Yeah, Newark. Everyone came to greet us there. All the contestants came and greeted us.
Oh, that was nice. That must have been nice.
Yeah, it was. We were surprised.
Yeah, but just a couple other, last 3 questions on season 1, and then if you don't mind, I'm probably going to take a quick bathroom break, and then we can get into All Stars.
Sure, go ahead.
So, do you have any fun pit stop stories from your time in season 1? Because I've been told that you got to stay a couple more hours, and you said like the Paris one was 36 instead of 12. So, do you have any fun like pit stop stories from your layovers and stuff, or any like juicy stories from that maybe?
I don't think we got to go anywhere in Paris, did we? I think we had to.
You couldn't leave. You couldn't leave the hotel in Paris. The very first pit stop in Johannesburg, we were all kind of waiting in line for our interviews at the end of the day. And I don't remember where Bill was, but I was sitting there with Lenny and Karen. And Lenny kind of pulled me aside and said, I'm carrying a diamond ring here that I'm going to give to Karen. I'm going to propose to her someplace along the way to marry me. And
Lenny was so nice.
Yeah, and I've got this diamond ring, and I'm going to spring it on her. And I just kind of was teasing her. I said, well, you better spring it on her early, because like we're going to eliminate everybody, and Bill and I are going to win this thing. And obviously that did not happen. That was one pit stop story that I can think of.
Well, the other pit stop that was great is because we were behind in Beijing, they actually got us a student to take us around around Beijing, and we went to the Tiananmen Square and to the Forbidden City.
Forbidden City. Yeah.
So we got to do that. That was really nice.
Another one on the very first night in Songwei Village. We were there early, and we were leaving. Our call time was like at midnight. So we went to bed like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to get a good night's sleep. And all the other subsequent teams came in after that. And then they had this big giant party in Songway Village with food and drinks and everything else. And that's where a whole bunch of people, including some cameramen, got so sick that they had to go to the hospital in Paris 2 days later. And we didn't even know that there was a party. So it's like, well, why is everybody sick? It's like, we're fine. It's like, what did you eat? Did the egg not agree with you or whatever? And then we found out that they had this big party and this bad food in Africa.
That's awesome.
I think that was it as far as, I think the very best party, the story was, the very best party was in India. They had fireworks and they served us food and dancers, and we were sitting on silk cushions and this big, huge Maharaja palace behind us. I mean, it was really spectacular.
That's when Frank and everybody else was charging the beers to our room and the dry cleaning.
That was the most beautiful hotel we stayed. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's spectacular.
Yeah, even Karen told me when she got eliminated in India, she's like, I don't know what hotel they put us in, but it was the nicest hotel I've ever been. I wish I could live there. She's like, we had a butler. It was like amazing. So
yeah,
really,
I'm sure
it was incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my last question for season 1, obviously, unfortunately, Nancy and Margareta passed away. So do you maybe have any like good stories about them like throughout the race, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, I'll tell one about Margareta. At the end of the race, because we were the villains, I knew we were about to finish the race and we had a big press day and we were going to be making an appearance on the Rosie O'Donnell show. And I was so nervous about what they were going to ask us about the Tunisian airport incident and all that, because that was in every newspaper. And I mean, the press coverage was amazing that first season. And I asked her what to do because she had either been in publicity or had a lot of experience with it. And I said, Margaret, I'm really worried about, how to handle this. And she goes, oh no, Bill, it's very simple. You just simply apologize. And I said, Margaret, I didn't do it. And she goes, I know, but you need to apologize and it will go away. And I said, okay, if that's what you think is the best thing to do, I'll do that. And that's what I did. And it did go away. And Rosie, I have to be real thankful for too. Rosie did an awfully good job about interviewing us and clearing the air about all of that. And it really felt like a big weight was lifted off my shoulder because I didn't want to be the spoil sport and saying, oh, it's in the editing, and so just saying a simple, I'm sorry was the best thing to do at that point. And so I thank Margareta for that. She's the one that told me to do that. And then Nancy was just as sweet and as kind as
she's just a sweetheart,
She
we became really close with her afterwards.
Very, very unbelievable.
She came to visit us when we were still living in Laguna Beach, and she stayed with us for a long weekend. And we all had a big party for episode number 2 or 3 down in San Diego at Billy's sister's house and stuff. And she and Robin Brennan and Paul and Amy and Bill, we all got together and spent a long weekend together.
Yeah, it really was. And it was a great cast.
She was a really, really wonderful lady.
And those two are sorely missed.
Yes. So going into All Stars, were you shocked to get the call? Were you excited to get the call? Like, what was your feelings like even before like getting the call?
No, we were thrilled. We had been anticipating it for a long time. And then Survivor had their All-Stars, so that it was becoming more and more likely that Amazing Race would have one also. And we were kind of expecting it. Somebody was going to have an All-Star. They were going to have an All-Star. It was questionable whether or not we would be on it or whatever. But we were absolutely thrilled when we got called.
Yeah. So. Was there anyone that you were shocked to see or not shocked to see? Because I've actually interviewed a couple people, and no offense to the winners of that season, Eric and Danielle. I actually interviewed Alex, who won season 2. And I think if you're going to do a co-ed team, you got to pick him and Tara, because that was their entire story arc throughout the entire race.
Yeah.
So I
think it was Colin and Christy who I was most shocked at, because I thought for sure Colin and Christy would have been on.
Yeah. But didn't they just have a baby or something?
Yeah. She was pregnant, so she couldn't do it.
So we were kind of shocked that they created a team of Eric and Danielle, and then if you can remember way back then, Riken was dating Lance Bass
Yeah.
at the time. So I was questioning them at the beginning of whether or not they were just going to do a big surprise on everybody and create another team. If they could create Eric and Danielle, they could create a Riken and Lance team also. And were they expecting to do that? And I actually asked a question in one of our meetings before we left of, is this everybody? And they confirmed that, yes, there was nobody, there was not going to be any surprise team that came in after episode number 2 or 3 or something.
Yes.
Or somebody waiting for us at the very beginning line that didn't stay in the hotel the night before.
Yeah, so was there anyone that you were like disappointed maybe not to see, maybe from your season, or like just in general, maybe like that you were disappointed not to see, not necessarily shocked, but you were like, dang it, we wish that they were on?
No, I think we were pretty, when we got there, it was pretty much everybody we thought, as I said, Colin and Christy, but we didn't know them well enough to know what was going on personally for them. But that was the only big surprise, because we thought for sure they'd be there.
And they also termed or named the whole season Unfinished Business. So there was kind of obvious of which teams really had unfinished business along the way and which teams didn't. Or, even some winners, it's like, I could find you didn't have unfinished business like some of these other people did. So,
and what were you nervous coming back? Because if I'm not mistaken, like in terms of filming dates, you guys hadn't raced in 5 years, and the race had changed a lot. There were yields. You had to do even amount of roadblocks, and I mean, Joe did 7, and Bill, you only did 4 your first season. So were you like, I need to step up, and like the game had kind of evolved in a way. So maybe talk about that perspective, because I mean, you, Kevin, and Drew, and Ozzy, and Danny, who I interviewed, you hadn't really raced in a long time. So were you nervous in terms of that, maybe?
Yeah, we probably could have reviewed more seasons and looked at the rules, because the rule, I mean, the mechanics of the game had definitely changed in a big way. The internet, all of the tools and things you could use. Ozzy and Danny, we'd heard, were using a
travel agent in Florida.
A 24-hour travel agent. I don't know if they talked about it to you, but anyway, there were things that we just weren't prepared for. And then the Hajj happened in going from
Johannesburg
to
Dar es Salaam.
Yeah, Dar es Salaam, and then going from Zanzibar to Warsaw. It just, there are just a lot of things that happened that kind of happened like season 1, and we thought, God, it's happening all over again. Mm-hmm. And I think we let that get to us a little bit. And there had been, almost every team there had been on fairly recently, except for Kevin and Drew and Joe and I. Ozzy and Danny, I think really were good. Yeah, because I think they were pretty prepared.
Yeah. One of the things that happened after season 1, and somewhere's around 2, 3, 4, I don't know exactly when, was in season 1, our rule, which is a hard, fast rule, is that when you buy an airplane ticket, you're stuck with that airplane ticket. So if you buy it, you buy the ticket and then you find out that there's a faster flight or an earlier flight or whatever, you can't change and buy another ticket because you've already purchased your ticket there. So do a good job on the way in, because once you buy the ticket, you're finished there. You take it. By the time season 11 came around, the rules of airplanes had completely changed, so you could buy a ticket and then you can continue working and asking questions and finding faster flights and faster arrival times. And if you did, you can buy those tickets also. And then at the end, you just kind of give the old tickets back to production.
They have to be non-refundable.
They get their money back or whatever.
Yeah, they have to be non-refundable flights.
So this was a
refundable. Excuse me.
Yeah, so this was a drawback in our minds, because we just weren't used to running around airports and constantly working it and working it and working it. When some of the other people, this is the way their race was. Case in point, when we were flying from Johannesburg to Dar es Salaam, we were in the airport for 36 hours. We spent the night sleeping on the floor with Terry and Ian and Eric and Danielle in like the first class lounge or whatever. And we were way far behind. And I had $50,000 worth of airplane tickets in my backpack.
Oh my God.
I just keep going and going and going and buy this one and buy that one. Eventually, I had to get a big piece of giant computer paper and just kind of make a flow sheet chart of which one is going to get us to Dar es Salaam first or whatever. And so much so that we had maxed out the Visa card of our sound man buying all these tickets. So we actually had to use a team's sound man to buy us tickets because we had exceeded the original Visa card's limit.
Because you never knew when you could get like a flight that was filled up. Suddenly there were 4 seats available, so you just kept buying and whatever you could get.
This flight has got 2 changes along the way. This one has got only 1 change and everything else. So that was a big ticket item for us that we really had to catch on to, and we didn't catch on to it real fast in the beginning of the race.
Yeah. So in the first leg, sorry, I like going in chronological order and
Sure.
like that. But in the first leg, you guys had to wrestle a bull, or it was some sort of animal. I think it was like a bull or a cow or something like that, like in a field on a detour or whatever in Ecuador.
No, we had to do something to a horse. What was it we had to?
You did wrangle some animal.
The first, like, we were in a horse ranch way, like a
Llano
Huerco was like 17,000 feet above the sea.
Yeah.
And the challenges were to trim a horse's tail.
Yeah,
and to trim the
hooves.
horse hoofs of a horse.
Yeah.
Or else you had to do something. I think we had to do these 2 things, or else we had to do something else.
Yeah, I don't remember what the other thing.
I don't remember what the other thing is either.
But it was something
because we did the horse hoofs and the tail.
Yeah. The other thing was something that Robin Amber did, and I don't remember what it was.
It was something about finding. It was something about finding buttons on a uniform.
Oh, yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar?
It was more like, you had to go look for something, whereas this one was in a corral, and we just felt like it was easier to do that.
I think it was looking for buttons or something that had fallen off a uniform or whatever, like an Ecuadorian army uniform or something.
Yeah. Well, was that tough, or was that like pretty easy?
I think it was tough until you figured out what they really needed done, because the horses were pretty uncooperative is what I remember.
Yeah.
But then there was a certain way you had to do it, and once we figured that out, it was fairly easy. It was just messy.
Yeah. The toughest thing about it was being at this ranch that was so high in elevation that you could hardly breathe, and people were starting to get sick from altitude sickness.
Yeah.
So they actually had like a special tea that would help mitigate the effects of altitude sickness that they gave everybody. And then the funny part about it is production said we're all going to sleep in these tents outside of this big giant ranch complex or whatever, like a ranch house or something. And we're all supposed to be sleeping like on the ground in these tents. And it was going down to like 35 degrees that night at 17,000 feet. And God bless Rob said, no, Amber's not feeling good and we're not sleeping in the tent. We're sleeping in the ranch house. And if you don't allow us to sleep in the ranch house, we're not doing the race.
So we let him do that.
I could see him saying that. Amber's too pretty.
Yeah.
She deserves to be like a queen.
You can imagine. Only 1 team has been eliminated so far. So you've got 20 people sleeping like in this big giant lounge area of this race, of this ranch house with this huge fireplace. And Rob and Bill stayed up all night long tending the fire so that we could stay warm.
We traded off. One would sleep, one would stay awake. So the fire wouldn't go out and we'd stay warm. Because it was
it was freezing outside.
The cabin was not heated, so if we didn't keep the fire going, it would have
was a
gotten
tent.
cold. No, that was not a tent.
That
was not a tent. That was a lodge.
I can't imagine
where we would have been.
Where we would have been.
Tent.
But I'm saying where we were sleeping. It would have gotten cold in that room. It was not heated.
Had a big fireplace.
Yeah, you slept all night. I stayed
slept
awake.
on the couch all by myself.
Yeah, I didn't. I stayed awake with Rob. Anyway.
I never appreciated Rob so much until that night.
Yeah, well, Rob was probably like
was
I didn't sign up for Survivor again, but so I just felt bad for Drew. I can't even imagine Drew in that situation because we saw in the episode 2 that he was like on an oxygen mask and completely miserable. So I can't even imagine him like with that too. So like,
Oh yeah, I think they were eliminated. Like, yeah, they got eliminated like the next day or the day
Rob
after.
and Amber?
No,
Who?
Drew.
Oh, they were eliminated. They were team number 3 out.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that. He was miserable. He got really sick.
Yeah.
A lot of people got altitude sickness that night. I mean, I could hear people throwing up when they'd go to the bathroom. There was a bathroom attached to this room we were in.
So what was your relationship with Kevin and Drew going into the race? Were you excited to see them? Because I saw in like a little sequester video, they were like, you're like, we wish we could have represented better for season 1. And they were like, oh, we're going to have like a little reunion at the bat. So that's going to be fun. So maybe like, what was your relationship like going into it?
Well, at the beginning of the race at the Miami airport, we made a truce with them. We said, look, everything that happened in 1 stays in season 1, and let's just make it as far as we can to represent season 1. And so we didn't make a deal with them. We just said we're not going to try to sabotage them.
Yeah.
That's all we said. I don't think we really saw them that much because we were always way ahead of them.
Yeah. So going
in the 2 legs. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. That was my bad.
Yeah, it was just we didn't want to get into any feuds with anybody right out of the gate, and we just stayed far enough ahead of them in the beginning of the race that we just really didn't see them.
We didn't have much interaction.
Yeah, so going into leg 2, you got to go through kind of like the rocky part of you got to go to Chile, and that seemed really cool. So how cool is it driving that giant crane? Because that looked pretty fun, and they did that in prior seasons. But was that like pretty fun?
It wasn't a crane. We had to. I mean, you're talking about the Atacama Desert?
Yeah, it was like a forklift or something, and you had to like drag.
It was a skip loader.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was a big, huge skip loader with wheels that are taller than both of us, and we had to fill up. What did we fill? We were filling. I forget where
gravel or something from one side to the other.
Yeah, we had to move something from one side to the other. It was pretty amazingly easy to do. I mean, I'd never driven something like that. I mean, I do know how to drive stick, so I was happy I knew that. But it was pretty incredible when I think back, and whenever I see one on a construction site, I think, how the hell did I do that? But Joe was watching me do it. So
yeah,
do you have anything to add? You had to kind of direct me with flags.
I had to direct you with flags, and then I had to do it at the end.
Yeah, you had to do part of it.
Yeah. So I got all the instructions anticipating that I was going to be doing the driving, and then once the instructions were finished, I got chicken, so I said to Bill, "Here, you do it." And he hadn't been paying attention so carefully, thinking that I was going to do it. So I kind of like dumped on him there. And then at the end, they told us, well, you're not done yet because the other person has to do it one time. So I still had to do it.
But then I helped him with some clues.
Yeah.
There were just a few things that you needed to know how to do, and it was pretty simple once you got used to it.
Yeah. I think the other people had to change a tire on one of these machines, and that was much harder.
Yeah, what we did was much easier.
But you never know.
So then after that, you stay in Chile. So on a scale of 1 to Danielle freaking out and Eric telling her to pick up the fish with the boobs, how bad was picking up that fish?
Joey did that.
I didn't hear
picking up the fish.
Oh, picking up the fish was like nothing. It was like that was cool. I thought that was a lot of fun. The problem with it was Chen and I were doing it together, and it was like no problem picking up the fish. You kind of transport them in like a little Coke crate or whatever. But the big problem was the clue of what to do next was written on the bottom of the pool.
Yeah.
And I only read half the clue. So we went racing out of there, not knowing the slightest idea of what to do or where to go, and wasted the better part of half a day or so running around.
Yeah.
Totally lost. until we ran into Myrna and Charla, who we thought were probably the last team. And they were having a problem. They had read all the clue, but they couldn't drive a stick. And you had to go up this big hill. So as a result, we're teaching Myrna how to shift and, downshift and go up a hill. And I say something about where we're going, and she turns around to me and says, "Oh, you haven't got the whole clue, do you? It's a good thing you ran into us." So I was like, well, where are we going? It's like, so she told us where we're going, and we taught her how to drive a stick.
Well, and it's funny because
And it turned out we were not the last teams. Dave and Mary were actually the last. They had a worse time of it than we did.
The Conleys.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it's really cool that you told me that, because Charlotte and Myrna, they were like, they owe us because we told them where it is and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, you wouldn't have gotten up that hill if you didn't teach them to drive sticks. So it's like even Steven. So it's like, why are you? Why are you saying this?
Exactly.
We'll probably never get credit from them for it, but that's the way it happened.
Thank you. That's true.
Yeah, so after that, you literally do my worst nightmare, whitewater rafting. I would just be screaming the entire time because I don't even kayak. I hate kayaking, so I can't. Whitewater rafting, I would just be like in the front of the boat screaming, praying to like whatever like Amazing Grace God there is, like don't make me die here. So how bad was that?
That's the way Bill. That's the way Bill is with whitewater rafting.
Yeah,
too.
it was pretty scary.
He hates it.
That was class, what was it, like class 4 or something? It was almost as high
Class
as
2, I think, out of 4 or 5.
Yeah, they were pretty scary.
It was big. Yeah. Prior to that, the alternate was to climb up this rock wall
And you don't
using
want
ropes, and which we attempted to do, but we couldn't do it because we didn't have the right shoes. It was like we couldn't get more than 3 or 4 feet off the ground before we fell down again. So we turned around and did the whitewater rafting instead.
Yeah, and I bet you didn't want to repeat your season 1 disaster all over again with the rock climbing. And I mean,
Really? Yeah.
No, this was yeah, that was just repelling. This was serious, like
This is going up.
This was
rather than going down.
really hard.
Yeah.
Like full on, you need to know what you're doing and have a lot of upper body strength.
But we chose that first because I knew Bill hated rafting, and then we did it anyway.
And their choice.
yeah, so after that, you go to Argentina, and there wasn't really much shown of you because it was really the whole Rob and Amber and Charlotte and Myrna showdown episode. But how Rob and Amber, the Charlotte and Myrna thing, there wasn't really much shown about you other than maybe like the letter from Frank and stuff like that. So how fun was that? I mean, like sorting through the letters, we got maybe like a little bit of slice of home from someone in a way. And
the letter.
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah, I went into the post office and I got really lucky because I found the right letter right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a total luck kind of thing. And there was no rhyme or reason to figure it out. And just a big pile of letters. And I just happened to find it pretty quick.
At the end, though, we were standing there after we had completed it, and the beauty queens were with us.
Yeah.
And we were standing like at the entrance or outside of the post office. Yeah. And Rob and Amber and Charlotte and Myrna were doing it. And we were watching them, and we saw Rob pass over the right letter.
Oh my God.
So he just really wasn't paying attention there. He had the letter and he just kind of skimmed over it, and we could see this. So like the 4 of us are all giddy thinking, oh, Rob and Amber are going to be out. Rob and Amber are going to be out.
You're like, I'm keeping my damn mouth shut. I'm not saying anything. Like, see it.
After they had come in first on the first 3 legs, they're out on the 4th.
Yeah, we were all rooting for that to happen because they were just
dominating everything.
Winning everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw like once they had like interviews afterwards in the next leg, and everybody was like applauding. It was I mean, I like Amber a lot more than Rob. I think Rob's a little bit shocking in my opinion, and I think Amber I think Amber is underrated, and I think that she gets the short end of the stick, and I think it's unfair.
Yeah, she's very sweet and she's very smart. She's
very smart, and not just on Survivor, but on the race too. And it takes, I feel like it takes takes someone extremely special to maybe like calm Rob down and keep him focused. And personally, like,
Yeah,
I believe,
Rob is lucky to have. Yeah, Rob's very lucky to have her.
yeah, I believe that she did deserve to win All-Stars, and anybody that says that she didn't is wrong, or not wrong. They're entitled to their opinion, but just enough Survivor talk. But just had to put that in there. So, how fun was it going on the ski lift in that fifth leg, where you guys had to find that little thing in the snow, and you guys were in first place, and you were just sitting there enjoying yourself? So, maybe how cool is that? Just like, finally, we've caught a break.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt really good. And then we got very lucky when we found it right away. I don't know why, but we just seemed to go right to the little monitor when we first got there, and we turned it around and went down, and then we had trouble finding flights. That was the big problem once we got down at the bottom of the mountain. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun being up on the mountain. We love to ski, so we were happy to do something like that.
Yeah, so how bad was that coal roadblock that you had to do when you had to shovel the coal, and why didn't you just decide to paint people's nails? Because that looked miserable, and they didn't really show it, but you kept saying, like, we have cuts all over, and it's like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, because we didn't want to, we just thought no one would trust a man to do their nails, when it turned out that men do paint nails for women there. We just totally blew it.
In a Muslim country, we would have never guessed that that's a man's job to paint fingernails for women in a shopping center.
Yeah.
Go figure.
In a Muslim country. So we said, no, we're not going to do that. It's like, that'll be a disaster. So
because the coal thing was very hard.
Yeah, we did the coal thing, and that was tough. That was very tough.
Well, and then how stressful was it? Because, no offense, the only way that I would ever win a foot race is if I was against, like, maybe like Peggy and Claire, the Gutsy Grady's from like season 2, or if somebody fell on their face, because I am not a fast runner at all. I aggressively speed walk. But how stressful was it? You had multiple foot races, and you don't really know where you are. So how, like, panicked is it in being in a foot race, like, with 3 other teams, like, constantly? And then after that, how pissed were you that not only did Rob and Amber get knocked out, but Uchenna and Joyce finished last, and you're like, great, another threat gone, and it's an on a limb.
Well, when they got eliminated, we were already eliminated.
Yeah, but they finished last in the fifth leg, and it was an on a limb. So were you like really pissed off? Were you like, oh come on, like?
I don't remember where we were then. I don't
for
them being non-eliminated.
Mombasa.
That was in Mozambique.
Yeah.
That was in Mozambique.
Oh, Mozambique.
Mozambique, yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember how I felt there. I don't remember being.
By then, I think we were already in the hotel.
Yeah.
And
you don't see the teams.
Yeah, we didn't know what was happening behind us.
Sometimes you don't know till the next day.
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime we'd see that there was a non-elimination, you'd be disappointed for sure, because they were definitely a strong team, and we didn't want them in the race.
Yeah.
We were hoping that who's the couple that was put together is Eric and Danielle. Eric and Danielle. We just were hoping they would get eliminated, but they always seemed to. Yeah. Eric seemed to save them every time.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny about them is they weren't even supposed to be on that season. It was supposed to be Flo and one of the twins from season 3. They were dating for like 5 years, apparently.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm only doing it with Zach because it brought out the worst in me, and yada, 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 yada. So they didn't do it. And so Eric and Danielle were their replacements. And they weren't even dating.
No, everybody was kind of pissed off at that. But that's, you take it, you get invited, you can't complain. I mean, you're so happy to be there.
There's nothing to be done about it, but
Yeah, apparently what I did is he got invited and he complained because he was like, Lynn Spielman was like, I saw this or listened to it on a podcast. He was like, oh, do you want to go on the rate? She's like, are you and Danielle still dating? And he was like, yes, even though they weren't. And he was like, why? And he was like, we really want you on the race because I wanted a Rob and Amber effect on The Amazing Race. And he was like, can I please just do it with Jeremy? Like, why do I have to do it with Danielle? And they were on the race. And he convinced her to do it. I mean, they won the $1 million, but it was just like, He was like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, we were just a regular partnership. Like, so,
Partnership. Eric did all the heavy lifting because she was a mess.
oh, she was. So I definitely want to talk about that. So during the like sixth or, oh, I forgot. How cool was it with that mouse and you had to find the mine? You guys had a lucky mouse and you had to find the little mine. That looks so cool just from like watching it, like how cool those animals were like trained. Like you see like
Yeah,
dogs
It was.
yeah, that was really an amazing thing. That was a really smart mouse.
Yeah, we had
Actually,
a rat.
It was
Yes,
a rat.
yes, named Norman.
Yeah, our rat name was
Our rat was Norman, and we were the first ones out of there, so we thought we were going to have this big leg up. But basically, you just kind of go to the pit stop and then wait, and everybody else is equalized the next morning.
Yeah,
But it was definitely cool. I enjoyed that.
yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I guess if you would have won the $1 million, you would have sent Norman the rat a couple of mouse treats or something like that, helping you along the way. But after that, you guys have to travel to. If I'm pronouncing this wrong, I apologize for everyone to live there. Salam Damar. So is that the worst travel experience you guys have ever had? Because that looked miserable being in the airport.
Dar es Salaam.
Dar es Salaam.
You mean Dar es Salaam?
Dar es Salaam. And was that the worst?
And then we went to Zanzibar.
Yeah,
Yeah, Zanzibar was incredible.
You had to go to Dar es Salaam and then Zanzibar. But was that like being in the airport for that long and saying that you were on the flight and then not being on the flight? Was that the worst like airport travel experience that you've ever had? Because that just looked awful.
It was horrendous. It was the Hajj, and I think it just wasn't well put together because there were no flights, and the teams that got flights were very lucky, and then the rest of us got stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so then
And that's the airport where we had to spend 36 hours and sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
With Terry and Ian and Eric and Danielle. And
Yeah,
it was just unbelievable. Yeah.
It was bad luck, and
We had
it came
everything seemed to go wrong. Make a real quick aside, when we got to Johannesburg from Mozambique, somehow Bill and I and a couple of other teams had gone through some glass doors in the Johannesburg airport. So we got into the lobby of the terminal without ever having to go through customs. So 36 hours later, when we're ready to go out, and we've finally got airplane tickets to get to Dar es Salaam, we're trying to get on the plane, and they're stopping us because our passports have no stamps in it. We were never there. So as a result, we're getting accused of sneaking into the country.
Not just us, though.
Not just Eric and Danielle and
Right.
Terry and Ian also.
Right.
You're running around so quickly and you're just following everybody else, and somehow we all made this mistake. So we got taken off to the police station
To sort it out.
in the Johannesburg airport, and like we were just about to get arrested because we were like saboteurs coming into their country or whatever. It's like, all we want to do is get out of your country.
But you always travel with a fixer, somebody from the country. So that person came in with our whole itinerary and all of our permits and explained to the police that we didn't mean to make this mistake.
I think there were phone calls to the lawyers in Los Angeles and
Yeah.
everything else. And eventually we got on the plane. And
But it's complicated.
The experience was so nerve-wracking that we got seats on the plane. Terry and Ian got seats on the plane. When it came to Eric and Danielle, who were last, people were sitting in their seats. So they were just about to get kicked off the plane. And then there was this big hubbub, and the people who were actually sitting in their seats, they got kicked off the plane. And Eric and Danielle got to fly with us. But Danielle was so stressed out that she started breaking down and crying and screaming that she wanted off the race and she was going to quit and just go home. I don't want to do this anymore. Say, go, 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 go. But she relented and calmed down and sat down in her seat and won the race eventually.
So why did you guys not get along with Eric and Danielle? Like they just like you. It showed a lot in the episodes that you were like, we want to be nicer Guidos, and we want to just be nicer to everybody and not step on people's toes. And they were like, these people are like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and like they were like not fans of yours. So like, what was there like a breaking point of like where like we don't like these people because of this, or what was it really?
It was Eric and Danielle and us.
Yeah.
A lot of it started way back in Ecuador when we were driving up to this ranch called Yanahuerco, and he was following us in this
Really close.
RV, really close. Literally,
Dangerous.
we were going over these little streams on bridges that were made out of cut logs.
There was just about as wide as our car.
Yeah, so I mean, if you weren't careful, literally you could fall off this bridge and end up in this little stream upside down or something. And I was driving, and he was like literally right on our tail,
Trying to pass
honking
us.
the horn, trying to pass us, doing all these crazy things. And I just immediately got sick of him. And it just continued and continued and continued. I'm sure he was sick of us also from the things that he said over the last 15 years. But to us, he was a guy that basically never went off on his own. Just like he and Jeremy, they were just kind of like following everybody else and not paying attention to the clues. But if these guys are going this way, we're going to go that way also. And if they're going to do this, we're going to do that too. We're going to stay right on their tail in taxi cabs, in cars, and everything else. And it happened later on in Poland, where literally we couldn't shake this guy. We literally could not get rid of this guy. And we were like, by then we were the last two teams at the bottom, which is a testament to how honest the race is, because they won. But up until that time, he was just a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I'll definitely talk about the Poland leg a little bit, because obviously that was your swan song. But so going into Salon, or going into you're basically in a two-way heat between Terry and Ian. What is that like? Because you obviously were in it before in season 1, and so you're used to coming out on top and making up ground. So how stressful was it, like building that fish puzzle and then basically doing I guess you could say it was like the action version of the boomerang toss, like the little.
Yeah, it was. That was just a thing where you needed to stay real centered and just follow the instructions. And I could tell I was getting better every time I threw it, and I just had to stay really calm because you couldn't worry about it. But the puzzle was before that, right? Or was it?
No, that was the puzzle. You had done the.
No, I was you had to throw the
throwing.
Yeah,
the puzzle.
Was
the puzzle was like a fish puzzle. So the puzzle was like that giant fish thing, and then after that you had to do the throwing.
Yeah, the puzzle was a two-sided puzzle, so it was very much a Survivor kind of thing.
Yeah.
You just had to, and Joe figured out that it was two-sided. So once we figured out we had to try pieces both ways, it went really fast. And then when we got out throwing, that was pretty hard. I mean, you really had to just have a real finesse with your throwing ability. And they helped you whenever you needed it. The Maasai were right there to help you. And I just eventually got it. I mean, it was just a practice. And I finally hit the item that I needed to.
So how annoyed were you when you had to go to Tanzania to Poland? Like you barely squeaked by. And once again, you have airport difficulties, and there really weren't that many equalizers. Were you like, come on, we made it past season 1. Can you give us a damn break for once? So how annoying.
It felt like that. Yeah, it really felt like deja vu. It was, oh my God, it was horrible. Didn't you think that?
I didn't hear the question.
It was when we were in
Zanzibar,
Kilimanjaro. Yeah, we couldn't get on the plane, and we knew we were getting further behind the other teams, and it just, and the flights were all full, and then the Kilimanjaro part was with what was the name of the airline?
KLM.
KLM didn't like the other airline that we were on.
The airline that flies from Zanzibar to Kilimanjaro,
Ethiopian or something,
is always late. And KLM gets real pissed off that they don't radio ahead and say, we're going to be 20 minutes late. Hold the plane because we've got 12 passengers that are getting on your flight. So we get on and we get there, and naturally our flight coming from Zanzibar doesn't radio ahead. And we get there, and there's the KLM flight sitting on the tarmac.
Doors open.
The doors are open with staircases up there. You can see the pilot in the doorway and in the cockpit.
But he closed it.
And they won't let us on.
Yeah.
So we were going to. I made a deal with Danielle of running out to the airplane and on the tarmac to talk to the airport to the pilot to let us on. And we're just about. We had sleigh bells. We were going to start ringing our sleigh bells and start making noise. And then Bill reminded me that this is where the airport where Colin almost got arrested, like an Amazing Race 7 or 8 or whatever, and ended up in jail or. Ended up in jail. So she got scared and she wouldn't do it with me. And I said, well, if you're not going to do it with me, I'm not going to do it either. So we didn't. And we all had to go to hotels that night. And the KLM flight left.
So is that all? So is what we saw, is that all what happened? Just because like we saw you screaming and then.
Yeah. It was just a bad connection, and the airlines don't have much love for each other, and we missed the flight because we were late.
Yeah, so then going into Poland, I actually was just watching this like 2 days ago just so I could be refreshed, and I saw that there was a roadblock that was unaired. So what did you have to do, and maybe who performed that, and was that your downfall in Poland in the non-elim?
No, what it was is what the unaired roadblock was is you at the pond rowing, but you didn't even do it. What happened was we had a bad cab driver. We had a roadblock that we did. That Daniel and Eric did a different roadblock than we did. They went and did the tuning of the piano. We stayed and did the X-rays, and there was little sponges, and we never used them to get the mannequin at the right angle to get the proper X-ray, and so we just took way too long doing that. We should have switched roadblocks also. Yeah. So it was our fault.
We picked the wrong roadblock. Tuning the piano, I thought was going to be really hard, and it was much easier than what we did. And then we screwed up because we didn't use all the equipment, and the next destination was written on the thigh bone of the skeleton, so you had to read it on the X-ray, and we just didn't catch on.
We never caught on.
Yeah, well, that was the.
And so that put. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I said that was the detour, the skeleton and the piano. But what I'm saying is that what they said in your Amazing Race wiki page, that there was an unaired roadblock, and I saw like when Joyce was running, there was like a roadblock pamphlet that you guys didn't do. So was it really the detour, or was it like the roadblock neck and neck?
Well, it was rowing across the pond, but since we were so late, they did away with it. They just brought us in to talk.
No, we rowed. I rowed.
Okay, so Joe rowed. It was unaired though.
Yeah, but it was like in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was raining.
And I just walked along, and then we went inside to get eliminated.
Yeah. No, that wasn't
outside. Yeah, that's okay.
That's not what we didn't get eliminated. You got eliminated with
it was a non-elimination.
That was
a non-elimination. Yeah. Well, okay, not eliminated. What I meant is Phil. We had to go to Matt and talk to Phil.
No, you talk to Phil. You give him some hugs. You give him some kisses after not being eliminated. Do you think that the mark for elimination penalty was fair? Because it was only in season 10 and season 11, if I'm not mistaken. And what I've heard is speed bumps usually take like 5 to 15 minutes. And obviously beforehand, you just had to give up your money or not have a penalty at all, like in your first season. So did you think the mark for elimination was fair? Because I think in that Poland leg, if I'm not mistaken, you guys actually finished ahead of Eric and Danielle, and then the penalty kind of screwed you over, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was there actually even ahead of Charla and Myrna. So walking my horse within the armor to the castle, but then we had to wait, and the penalty was too long.
So do you think?
Yeah, I came in like third or something.
Fourth.
Yeah,
because I changed into the armor really quick, got my horse down there really quick, and Charla kept falling, and because she had short legs and the armor was heavy and the horse wasn't cooperating, and Eric and Danielle were behind us. So yeah,
Yeah,
it was just, it is
We
what
had
it
a
is. You
penalty.
can't complain. It's
Yeah.
the race is the race, and the way they set it up is set up in advance. So we just didn't have enough time.
Yeah, so just a couple more questions. So, going into the Poland, or how emotional were you going to Auschwitz? Like, what was that experience like? Because you went to a bunch of like the wonders of the world, and like even for me, like my grandpa actually liberated a bunch of people from concentration camps, so I can only imagine like actually going there. So, what was maybe your experience like going there? Like, obviously, it's very emotional, but maybe just talk about
Yeah,
that.
well, because it's known, but not as well known as all the Jews that were killed during the war. But there were lots and lots of gay people that were also suffered the same fate, and it was palpable when you were there. You could feel the horrible acts that were committed there. It was just you could
It was
definitely,
very moving.
yeah, it was a moment in the race that I'll never forget.
So after the Auschwitz, you guys have an intersection, and so were you excited to maybe do the intersection, or were you kind of like stressed because you're kind of at another team's mercy, especially with the penalty, or like how were you feeling? Because Dustin and Candace,
No, we were very excited about the intersection because we thought we were quick enough to make it with the beauty queens, and that's who we were hoping we'd meet there, but I guess we were just a few minutes late.
Well, what happened is that we had cab drivers who were not from Krakow. They were from another place. So they didn't, when you try to tell them where you wanted to go, they had no idea where these places were, just like you didn't. So you had to find it for them.
Yeah.
And
We went through the ghetto.
we had a choice of bagel making or kielbasa eating. And we chose to do the bagel making. Eric and Danielle are in a taxi cab right on our tails, following us as usual, and we couldn't find the place. So after spending 20 or 30 minutes looking for this bagel making place, we decided to switch and go for the kielbasa making experience, only to arrive there late enough. And this is the first time where you had like a roadblock.
It was an intersection.
An intersection with teams. So it's like you couldn't just do it yourself. You had to have somebody else doing it with you. The beauty queens were waiting for us, wanting to do it with us, and we didn't show up. So they did it with Charlotte and Myrna. So we were stuck doing it with Eric and Danielle. And Eric was very clever of saying, if we come in last, if we just can waste time, we can eliminate Bill and Joe, which is exactly what happened. So making kielbasa and eating it all, I was the first one out of 8 of us. And Eric was just making believe that he was going to throw up and it was too disgusting and I can't do this. And we can't leave until he does. And so as a result, the beauty queens and Charlotte and Myrna left before us, and we had to wait for Eric to stop playing around.
I'm surprised that they would want to eliminate you because, like, I think you and the beauty queens are like fairly even, and so like it's interesting that they would want to eliminate you. I wonder if Danielle knew about it because she seemed like really nervous about it, but then she like trucked through it. But were you excited to eat the kielbasa or like? Because my dad's from Pittsburgh, so they eat a ton of kielbasa there. So I'm used to it. So I think
I'm half Polish, so I grew up on this stuff.
No, I love it too, but not that much. Not 6 feet of it. It's too much to try to eat that much.
Yeah.
I just can't even imagine all the salt.
We were tasting it for like 5 days afterwards.
It was just too much food. You know, it's hard to digest it when you have to eat it fast.
I just can't even imagine all the salt that you have to consume.
No, it's very tasty, but not that much as usual.
We haven't had any since.
No.
So obviously you guys didn't get to go to like the sequester resort thing, and they kind of had like a life at Ponderosa like they do for Survivor, like for the Amazing Race at that time. But did you kind of have like any fun sequester stories maybe, or like were you just like stuck in
No, we actually became decoys. When we were eliminated, we became decoys for the rest of the race. So we did almost everything else the other teams did.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was actually fun.
We were the first ones that were decoys of Amazing Race 11.
So we did almost everything you
Yeah.
see.
We
had
traveled
to do
with Chen and Joyce, who were behind us and got eliminated next. And
they gave us a fake camera crew,
Yeah.
and so we did everything. We just kind of
Yeah.
did it for just a few minutes, so people could see us and
Yeah.
we could be visible. So in case people saw us doing it, they would think
Yeah.
we're still in the race.
Make lots of noise, going through
Yeah.
airports, attract
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
Chen and Joyce jumped off, Chen and I jumped off the Macau Tower in a typhoon together. So that was cool.
And then when we went from there, we went directly to Hawaii.
We went to Guam.
Oh, Guam first. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were in Guam.
Yeah.
We didn't do much there. We just kind of
just ran around.
drove around in cars. We
Yeah.
didn't do too much because
Yeah.
they were doing some pretty specific things and helicopters and stuff.
So maybe out of that, because you just told me that, maybe like what was your favorite task and like yeah, like what was your favorite task with that and stuff? Because that seems really
Well,
cool.
Joe did the best.
Yeah,
Joe
jumping
got to
off the
jump on-
Macau Tower was the best, the greatest
Yeah.
thing, like from probably 2 amazing races that I've ever done. I mean, that was absolutely unbelievable. It's like as tall as the Empire State Building, I suppose. You know, it's kind of hard to say, but literally it was during a typhoon. So once you jump off, Uchenna did it before me, and after about a half of a second, I couldn't even see him anymore. It was raining so hard. It came out drenched, but safe and sound. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was much more fun to be decoys than to go to. They went to
Macau.
no,
Guam.
the people that went to sequester. They were in.
Oh, they went probably
Acapulco.
to Acapulco.
Yeah, they went to Acapulco. I'd much rather be on the race than do that. And then we
Yeah.
ended up in San Francisco.
Well, I can also only imagine it's kind of nice in a way too. Like obviously you're pissed that you don't win the $1 million, but you get to jump off the tower and you don't have to be stressed and panicked. You can like enjoy yourself.
Right.
It's almost like a mini vacation. Like I get to see all these sites for free and go on the Amazing Races dime. And
Yeah, you get a per diem, so you can eat. Yeah, nice hotels, and yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, that's like my dream.
Yeah, and you're on the same airplane. Yeah, it was fun.
So if you could race with any partner other than each other from any of your seasons or anywhere, who would it be and why?
Jeez.
I would only want to race with Joe, honestly, because the partnership is so important that you're with someone that's stable and that's competent and smart and level-headed. So that's all Joe. And I can't think of anybody else I would feel instantly that chemistry with, but you might have a different feeling.
No, after that, I'm going to say the same thing. Bill only.
No, you can say whatever you want to, but I can't imagine, because you have to start all over learning the personality, and you don't want to say something that might make them mad. You know, I know Joe well enough that I know we can be in really stressful situations and figure it out. And I think that's half the race, keeping level-headed. So honestly, I mean, you got to know who you're racing with, and it'd be too hard. Like when they did that season where they paired people up at the starting line. Like Tara, we used to live here in Hawaii.
You get a new partner at the end, or at the beginning.
At the beginning, I mean, that's just insane.
That's tough. Yeah,
that you have to get to know somebody during the race.
Yes.
My favorite answer for that was Frank and Karen said they would both want each other. I can only imagine that. That would be really good TV.
Frank and Karen? Oh my God. No way.
That would be.
They're like this the whole time.
Exactly. That's why it'd be great.
Before Bill's answer, I would have said Margarita. I would love to do it with Margarita. Margarita on Amazing Race 1 was the single smartest person.
Yeah, Margarita she's
really
very athletic.
She's athletic. She had her head together.
Smart.
She knew what she was doing. She stayed calm the whole time. The most important thing about the Amazing Race is making good decisions with very little information.
Yeah.
And Margarita can do it.
Yeah, we learned a lot from her in the first
Yeah.
couple of pit stops.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I did it with Bill.
but that's all the questions that I have. I really appreciate you guys taking out a bunch of time in your day and doing this with me.
Bye.